This guy was a secret agent on a mission to capture a ruthless trafficker, but little did he know, this woman was actually a powerful vampire. She brutally slaughtered all of his comrades, leaving only him alive, and by forcing him to drink her blood, she turned him into a vampire himself. Now his only reason to live is to avenge his fallen friends and hunt her down. Except, right in the middle of his revenge, he gets captured by the Vatican, a secret organization dedicated to wiping out all vampires. The story begins with a man talking about a woman named Snow White. He explains that she is the target of the mission. An agent raises his hand and questions the code name. He asks why white, since she isn't Caucasian. He points out that she's a typical Asian woman. Furthermore, he comments that she looks way too weak to be a dangerous target. But the man calls him the team leader, Kim Soo-hyuk. He asks Soo-hyuk not to judge the situation by race or gender. After all, she is an extremely dangerous woman. Anna Nanayama, also known as Snow White, is the leader of the Yakuza faction called Nanayama-gumi. The reason for her nickname is simple. She is the main drug supplier in the region dealing with the famous white powder. That's why she got the alias Snow White. The target plans to throw a drug-fueled party at a hotel with minimal security. This will happen right after a meeting between the domestic organization and the international faction. To prevent the distribution of drugs in the country, the team must use this opportunity to eliminate her. Since the operation will be disguised as a gang conflict, the use of firearms will not be allowed. A man with glasses asks if this mission isn't too difficult. That's exactly why they assigned the best of their agents, the team leader Kim Soo-hyuk. The man states that he trusts him completely. Soo-hyuk just replies to leave everything in his hands. Now, already at the party's hotel, as soon as Soo-hyuk steps out of the elevator, 3 guards notice his presence. They start yelling, asking who he is and stating that he can't be there. Soo-hyuk warns through the team's communicator that he is already going in. Then, he pulls out a knife. The guards are surprised and realize he's an enemy. Quickly, Soo-hyuk goes on the attack. While one of the guards tries to attack him, Soo-hyuk blocks the strike. With a swift movement of his arm, he slits the enemy's throat. After the first one falls, another tries to attack him from behind. But Soo-hyuk is agile and uses the first enemy as a shield. Before the mission, it was reported that approximately 10 non-combatants needed to be eliminated, and the estimate was that there would be over 20 armed combatants. They asked Soo-hyuk how many agents would be needed to raid the hotel. He replied that only 3 agents, including himself, would be enough. They questioned if that wasn't too risky, but Soo-hyuk explained that the place has 3 exits, so there was no other way. After all, it's an extermination operation. He thought that no matter how many enemies were inside, no one could beat his team brothers. They were much stronger than most. One of the agents comments that the invasion was too easy. Soo-hyuk proudly thinks that they are the NIS black agents, the elite survivors from hell. He orders the team to focus on the mission. After regrouping, they approach the target. Soo-hyuk warns that inside, everyone will be under the influence of drugs. Now there is only one way left, which is right in front of them. The plan is to block the exits and eliminate everyone. But, as soon as he tries to open the door, he sees Snow White inside. She is staring blankly at the door, while holding a girl. The 3 agents stop immediately. Soo-hyuk wonders what the hell is that. His companions ask their boss what happened there, and why everyone is already dead. Soo-hyuk orders them to find the target immediately. First, they must close the entrances and lock the door. As soon as they lock the door, someone turns on the hall lights. Snow White says, in a mocking tone, that the entrance is closed and the door is locked. This deeply surprises the 3 of them. She quickly asks them what comes next. Soo-hyuk mentally asks himself what that woman is. Even staring at the scene, he can't understand it. She is basically holding that girl's severed head. She claims that now she must kill all of them. Soo-hyuk thinks that if he had run away with his team brothers earlier, maybe they would have had a chance. They thought they were the strongest, but now they are face to face with death. She calls out to the agent positioned on the right. She tells him to catch and throws the girl's head toward him. As soon as the agent catches the head in midair, Snow White throws something at high speed. The object pierces through the girl's head and rips the agent's neck, making him fall dead to the floor. The 2 remaining agents scream in horror. The surviving agent, consumed by fury, rushes at her, cursing her. Soo-hyuk yells for him to stop, warning that she isn't an ordinary person. But, to Soo-hyuk's surprise, she uses a simple bottle cap to blow a massive hole in the agent's skull. Soo-hyuk is in shock once again. She starts laughing. She says that no matter how many bugs gather together, they are still just bugs, and she asks what he thinks he can do now all by himself. Soo-hyuk, filled with hate, screams that she is a monster and deserves to die. At the same time, he thinks he needs to stay calm. That entity is beyond his capabilities, but they can't back down now. Once again, she throws something his way. He realizes it's a human tooth. Tracking the object's direction, he manages to dodge, but the tooth still grazes his face. She smiles and says he actually has good reflexes. Now, with several teeth in her hand, she starts shooting all of them at him. But Soo-hyuk manages to dodge the barrage. With a huge leap, he closes the distance and goes for a melee attack, telling her to die. Except, incredibly fast, Anna grabs his head in midair and throws him far away. Soo-hyuk thinks this is impossible. What kind of absurd strength is this? To his despair, she takes a giant leap and lands right on top of him. She lands exactly on his legs, crushing the bones easily. He starts screaming in pain. She, with a psychopathic expression, says she liked him a lot. The screams of pain make her even more excited. She asks him to entertain her a little more. Soo-hyuk wonders what she means by entertainment. At that moment, she stabs a knife straight into his hand. In agony, he asks if taking other people's lives is her entertainment, and screams, questioning if she thinks all of this is fun. Driven by pure survival instinct, he lunges at her neck, biting and ripping a piece off with his teeth. Anna is startled by the unexpected reaction. Next, she is stabbed in her own neck by a shard of glass Soo-hyuk grabbed from the floor. She widens her eyes, very surprised, and simply collapses on top of him. Soo-hyuk pants. He thinks that in the end he managed to kill her. The revenge was a success. He was the only one who survived the fight. He asks for forgiveness from all his brothers who died, and thinks he will soon join them in the afterlife. But, at that exact moment, he feels something strange in his body. He starts coughing up an abnormal amount of blood. Quickly, the woman gets up from the floor, as if it was nothing. She comments that that sneak attack was totally unpredictable, and praises the fact that, even being a mere human, biting her neck like that was impressive. She pulls out the glass shard stuck in her neck, and the wound begins to regenerate instantly. Soo-hyuk watches that and wonders what kind of freak that woman is. At that moment, the sensation in his body drastically worsens, and he starts screaming in pain. She tells him not to try to understand, because it would never make sense. She mentions that he is the first human she knows to react that way. Soo-hyuk begins writhing on the floor, spitting more blood and screaming louder and louder. She just smiles and says she hopes he survives. Out of pure cruelty, she sinks the knife once more into the palm of his hand. Soo-hyuk keeps screaming with even more agony. When he finally loses consciousness, she observes him and says he is truly pathetic. Right then, the Yakuza henchmen abruptly throw the hall door open. They rush in desperately and ask if the boss is okay, but she glares at them with pure fury. With the same tooth she threw before, she mercilessly pierces the skull of one of the henchmen. The others watch the scene and are horrified. Still very annoyed, she orders them to clean up all the bodies. She coldly announces that they will be returning to Japan right now. The saying goes that the way someone dies evaluates the value of their life. Some are lucky and go into luxury coffins. Later, in a morgue, a man smoking a cigarette asks the staff how many bodies they have there. One of the agents replies that, in total, there are 33 funeral urns. As the saying goes, the others only go into cheap urns. And at the end of the day, no one really knows who makes the life evaluation. In this way, those men keep preparing the urns for the corpses. Soo-hyuk, trapped inside one of them, wonders in his mind what kind of life he led, and how the hell he ended up there. But, late in the afternoon, the unthinkable happens. Soo-hyuk wakes up and rises from the urn. This shocks all the staff in the room. They panic, asking what is going on, but the smoking man simply approaches and stares at the boy. The others tell him to step back, assuring that the boy is definitely already dead. They ask what the hell is that, as they have never seen anything like it before. They imagine what kind of grudge would make a dead man rise up like that. Meanwhile, Soo-hyuk's only thought is that he refuses to die. The man with the cigarette gets closer and presses the lit end right on Soo-hyuk's throat to test him. Soo-hyuk wonders what kind of final evaluation he will receive from death. To everyone's surprise, the cigarette burn mark regenerates easily right before their eyes. The man is shocked. He stares at the boy not as a human, but as if he were exotic prey. It becomes clear to everyone there that the boy survived supernaturally. Soo-hyuk thinks once more about the value of his own death, but he is absolutely sure that he will only accept his definitive end after getting revenge on that damn woman. In this way, Soo-hyuk started having a dream. He remembered that moment before they entered that room. It was a time when all his friends were still alive. Suddenly, he felt a tremendous emptiness and wondered what that was. Two hands appeared, grabbing his head and dragging him closer to a woman with multiple hands. She stared at him and stated that he had also made it. Soo-hyuk only tried to escape from that woman, but she kept saying he was welcome. She called him a daywalker. At that moment, he opened his eyes. The scorching sun was right above him. With a terrible headache, he wondered what he was doing there and what all of that was. Looking around, he faced a shocking scene. Several dead bodies right in front of him. Completely stunned, he asked himself what the hell was going on. Right after, someone right next to him called his name. The man addressed him as team leader Soo-hyuk. He stated that they were from headquarters and asked Soo-hyuk to please come with them. Now inside a car, Soo-hyuk asked the two agents what had happened on the ship. They replied that they were still investigating, but heard he had completed the mission. One of them asked if Soo-hyuk wasn't tired, but he assured them he was fine. The man in the front seat warned that it would be a long trip and suggested he try to sleep during the ride. It was then that Soo-hyuk noticed the man staring at him wearing a gas mask. He realized they had released sleeping gas in the vehicle. In that instant, he passed out. The agent with the mask called someone else and reported they had captured the specimen. He called the man on the other end of the line director. The director praised their good work and ordered them to bring the prisoner to his lab. He stated they would start the dissection immediately. The director began to tremble with excitement. With an insane expression, he celebrated that he had finally gotten what he wanted so much. A few hours later, the car arrived in front of the lab. The director ran toward the vehicle, calling for the researchers. They went to the trunk, while the director urged them to hurry, as they needed to conduct several experiments. However, as soon as they opened the trunk, the director was in shock. Soo-hyuk wasn't there. Instead, there were the bodies of the two agents. Confused, the director wondered what that was. Suddenly, one of the men was shot right in the middle of the forehead. Then, two more guards were shot, one after the other. The director received a splash of blood on his face and stood completely paralyzed. Seeing that bloody scene, he wondered what the hell was happening. To his total shock, Soo-hyuk stepped out of the car. The director started trembling with fear and, upon recognizing him, ran away desperately. He called all security units, ordering them to kill the intruder. Soo-hyuk walked calmly toward them, reloading his gun. He saw several agents charging to attack him. With cold precision, Soo-hyuk eliminated the first one, then the second, and the third. A man armed with a knife tried to attack him from the side, but Soo-hyuk managed to dodge and shot him in the arm. While the enemy screamed in pain, Soo-hyuk fired a fatal shot to his head. Quickly, he noticed two more guards running from the right. He dodged the first one, grabbed his arm, and pulled him back. At the same time, he landed a solid punch right in the face of the second guard. When the man hit his head on the car, Soo-hyuk took the previous enemy's knife and stabbed it into his neck. Suddenly, he felt imminent danger. He realized he had been shot in the head. The director started walking back, claiming they had finally got him, and ordered the guards to check the body. Two agents approached Soo-hyuk cautiously, but in the blink of an eye, he disappeared from there. He had hidden under the car. With a quick jump, Soo-hyuk finished off one of the guards. The other guy started screaming, desperate, saying he was sure he had shot him in the head. He couldn't understand how Soo-hyuk could still be alive. Acting fast, Soo-hyuk disarmed him. He grabbed the enemy's arm and put him in a chokehold. While the guard begged for forgiveness, Soo-hyuk thought about how he and his team had dedicated their entire lives to the country. He remembered a few hours ago, right after killing the two agents escorting him, and reading the real mission intel. Filled with hatred, he concluded that that scumbag had sacrificed them just to get what he wanted. Now, Soo-hyuk was determined to show him just how cruel a dog he abandoned could be. Now, seeing that scene of Soo-hyuk cutting off an agent's head, the director is completely shocked. He can only see Soo-hyuk looking like a true demon, walking slowly in his direction. As he gets closer, Soo-hyuk remembers that he was killed 2 or maybe 3 times almost on the same day. He doesn't know for sure what is happening to his own body. But one thing is certain. As an agent, his mission now is to gather intel and eliminate the enemies. The director begs, pleading for team leader Soo-hyuk to please calm down. He promises to explain everything and clear up the circumstances. Desperate, the man claims he will help him with his next promotion and asks him to put the gun down. Except Soo-hyuk couldn't care less about him and shoots him right in the leg. The old man starts screaming in pain, begging him to wait a moment. But Soo-hyuk glares at him with pure rage. He tells the director to shut up, answer his question, and reveal what he did to the team. The director tries to justify himself, saying there seems to have been a misunderstanding and that Soo-hyuk should hear what he has to say. But, once again, Soo-hyuk shoots him, this time in the director's other leg. He keeps screaming in agony, while Soo-hyuk tells him to stop with that useless talk. The director then reveals the truth. He explains that even if Soo-hyuk dies, he will come back to life and his wounds will heal quickly. He says that some of Anna's subordinates were also like that. Soo-hyuk is quite surprised by the revelation. The director continues, saying that her faction reached the top of Japan, even though they were a new force, probably thanks to this technology. He confesses that they also wanted to get this technology, and that's why they sent their agents. But, instead of getting any intel, they all ended up dead. With that, the plan was revised. They decided that instead of sending mediocre agents, they needed to send a reliable one. And so Soo-hyuk was the chosen one. The logic was that, even in dangerous missions, they wouldn't need to worry about casualties. The director praises Soo-hyuk, saying he worked hard and calling him a hero. But, at that very moment, he gets shot in the arm. The director cries, asking why Soo-hyuk keeps shooting, since he already told him everything. Soo-hyuk snaps back with hatred. He questions how the director dares to call him a hero, asking if, in reality, they didn't just plan to use him as a simple lab rat. He demands to know if they even knew what that woman was. Soo-hyuk states that if they knew the danger of more deaths, they should have gathered more intel first. He accuses the director of killing everyone out of pure greed, pointing out that his colleagues could have been saved. But the director fires back coldly. He says that even assuming she has some weird abilities, those Yakuza criminals are also just people. The director argues that he wouldn't lose to people like that. In the end, that was the team's job, and they still lost. The director claims the agents only died because they went into the mission with a death wish, and mocks them by saying the government even gave them medals when they died. He yells, asking why Soo-hyuk is making such a fuss, and calls him a bastard. Our protagonist simply responds with a straight kick to the old man's face. With the director bleeding and crying heavily, Soo-hyuk tells him to shut his mouth and not say another word. He pulls out his knife and warns that he will make the old man feel the same pain the agents felt. He guarantees that tonight will be terribly long. The old man, desperate, begs him to wait. At that moment, an accurate shot hits Soo-hyuk's gun. By the time he realizes it, several other agents arrive in cars, ordering him to drop his weapons and surrender. The director sighs in relief, asking why they took so long to arrive. Several armed men surround Soo-hyuk. He He notices the imminent danger and concludes he needs to find cover fast. But as soon as he starts running, the agents open fire. Soo-hyuk is hit multiple times. When the shooting stops, he falls to the ground, seemingly dead. The director bursts into laughter. He mocks him, saying Soo-hyuk seemed all-powerful, but he had already served his purpose, and it serves him right. He states that now the boy just needs to be locked up forever, willingly giving his blood, since he can resurrect and heal his wounds. The director concludes that whether it's Soo-hyuk or that thing, he just needs to overpower them with firepower. Laughing, he mockingly repeats that the team leader worked hard. But, to everyone's surprise, a girl appears standing right on top of the lab's roof. She asks the old man if the one on the ground is Soo-hyuk. The director is confused and asks who that woman is. She introduces herself as Ayaka, the leader of the 7th Squad, and she warns that she is from the Yakuza, the organization he just mentioned. Deeply worried, the director orders everyone to kill her immediately. As the agents start shooting, Ayaka takes a huge leap and swords appear in her hands. Before they realize what happened, she slices and cuts down each of the shooters with extreme ease. Other agents quickly set up a defensive formation and unload their weapons on the girl, but Ayaka just glares at them. At surreal speed, she begins blocking the bullets with her swords. The agents panic, wondering how she can use swords against bullets, and if that shouldn't be impossible. Without hesitation, she cuts off an agent's head, and then goes on decapitating each one of them, one by one. The last man in the formation is split in half. Far away, a sniper aims at the girl. He fires, but Ayaka sees the bullet coming slowly toward her head. With a super fast reflex, she slices the bullet in half. The survivors are terrified, asking what the hell that is and how she managed to cut a bullet. They call her a monster. In the next instant, she severs the sniper's arm, and soon after rips off another guard's head. The director watches everything in despair, wondering who that terrifying woman is. He finally realizes that she is a true monster, a monster he could never defeat. Suddenly, the director doesn't even notice what hit him. It was a fast and perfect cut. He lost half of his head in that very instant. After eliminating the threat, Ayaka walks over to Soo-hyuk. She says she knows he is awake and asks to confirm if he is Soo-hyuk. She warns that Miss Anna asked for him to be brought to her. Soo-hyuk, furious, starts gritting his teeth, revealing that his fangs have appeared. He growls and tells her to get the hell out of there. But Ayaka smiles and makes a correction. She says Anna didn't order him to be brought to her. Actually, the order was to bring him to me. At that moment, Ayaka attacks him, but Soo-hyuk manages to defend himself with his knife. Meanwhile, the girl says that he is quite impressive. Soo-hyuk keeps defending himself, thinking that he has already lost a lot of blood. And the longer the fight lasts, the worse the situation gets. The agent thinks this might be his only option, already seeing Ayaka attack again. She says that Soo-hyuk held out for a long time, but Ayaka quickly blocks his attack and states that this is his end. The swordswoman stabs her sword right into his stomach. To her surprise, Soo-hyuk grabs her arm. He glares at her and warns that he got her, which deeply shocks Ayaka. At that moment, she pulls out her sword and cuts off Soo-hyuk's arm. Meanwhile, with his knife, he cuts off Ayaka's head. Both fall to the ground. With his arm and half his body cut, Soo-hyuk can only think of Anna. He remembers her neck bleeding heavily, but healing in a matter of seconds. Soo-hyuk thinks that this time he definitely cut off the enemy's head, and he is sure he won. But his mind is fading. As he closes his eyes, Soo-hyuk wonders if he is dying again. But, to his shock, Ayaka speaks again, saying he is very impressive. The girl's body is holding her own severed head. Soo-hyuk is completely stunned, wondering what kind of woman she is. He watches Ayaka bringing her head back to her neck, and after she snaps it in place, Ayaka's head returns to normal. The girl comments that Miss Anna would find this highly desirable. Soo-hyuk starts trembling in fear, realizing that his body is really not moving. He concludes that he is completely doomed now. Ayaka stands right above him and says the boy did well. She warns that when Soo-hyuk wakes up, he will be in front of Miss Anna. Ayaka thinks that he should be more obedient now. After all, the blood supply was cut off, and Soo-hyuk is still conscious. The girl decides she must return now, before it's too late. But, to Ayaka's shock, Soo-hyuk starts to stand up. She asks if he can really still fight, and she warns that fighting is useless. But, even so, Soo-hyuk charges at her with everything he has. Without hesitation, Ayaka uses her other sword and cuts off his other arm. With Soo-hyuk now missing both arms, Ayaka warns that, at this rate, all his limbs will be severed. But, to the girl's shock, she suddenly gets punched. Ayaka wonders what the hell that is and where this new arm came from. At that moment, Soo-hyuk's other arm is also rebuilt. He goes on the attack against her with two brand new arms. Ayaka realizes that this is his regeneration, and that it is a high-level regeneration happening at extreme speed. Soo-hyuk jumps on her and bites the girl's arm, sinking his fangs deeply. Ayaka thinks desperately that the situation is terrible. At that moment, Soo-hyuk manages to rip her arm off. While Soo-hyuk sucks the blood from the torn arm, Ayaka realizes she is in big trouble. At this rate, she will lose everything. So, the girl takes a few steps back. With her arm cut off, Ayaka just stares at Soo-hyuk, sucking all the blood from her arm. He leaves it completely dry and lifeless. bullets. After the arm falls to the ground, Ayaka realizes the situation is really bad. She just stares at Soohyuk, who is turning into a monster. The protagonist screams very loudly. Ayaka wonders what kind of power this is. But, to the surprise of both, Soohyuk starts getting shot at again. When Ayaka looks in the direction of the shots, she starts blocking those bullets. But a bullet gets through and hits her shoulder dead on. The girl realizes she took damage from the bullet, and she wonders what that is. Suddenly, Ayaka finds herself surrounded by several armed men, and in the center of them another girl comes walking. She recites out loud, "Our Father, who art in heaven, we are sending these two up right now." Right after hearing that prayer, Ayaka realizes the situation got pretty complicated because she recognizes all those shooters. The mysterious woman in the center of it all orders them to shoot her, and the man as well. And so Ayaka and Soohyuk begin to be peppered with bullets. When the two fall to the ground, the leader orders the men to stop shooting and commands them to burn the boy. Suddenly, several darts hit Soohyuk, and the agent starts screaming in pain. Right after, the men start electrocuting him without mercy. Meanwhile, Ayaka notices that things are looking pretty bad for her. Since the sun is rising, the swordswoman's skin starts burning right away. The female leader mocks her, asking if that hurts, and warns that hellfire will be twice as hot. Ayaka grumbles that the enemy is exaggerating since they are merely humans. Enraged by being underestimated, Ayaka goes all out to attack her, but the mysterious woman blocks the strike using her own leg and crushes the swordswoman's arm with ease. Ayaka starts screaming in pain. The leader asks what she is mumbling about and guarantees that Ayaka will die by her hands today and that her friends will also disappear soon. But out of nowhere, the woman looks back and wonders what that commotion is about. Everyone is terrified seeing Soohyuk get up from the ground. Even after being electrocuted, the leader realizes that the agent is still standing. But what makes her most intrigued is not understanding why he isn't affected by the sunlight. Seeing that the enemy got distracted, Ayaka realizes this is her chance. The girl breaks free from her and starts running away. The short-haired woman thinks this is a problem. She notes that Ayaka used all her remaining blood to manage to escape, even having to run under the sun. The leader knows very well that if she goes after her now, she can still catch her. But right at that moment, she starts hearing several desperate screams. The guards yell, not understanding why that bastard won't die. Soohyuk is already charging in with everything to attack them. When the protagonist is almost grabbing one of the men, the short-haired woman goes after Soohyuk and cuts off his arm with her sword. She orders all the shooters to fall back, and they obey immediately. Soohyuk just glares at her, showing his terrifying vampire eyes. The woman says that this boy seems to be much more dangerous. Pointing her sword, she orders him to die once and for all. To her surprise, Soohyuk blocks the strike with his own arm. The woman lets out a smile and comments that he is pretty tough. The arm she had just cut off regenerates in the blink of an eye, growing a brand new one in its place. She is even more shocked when this new arm comes straight at her for an attack. The leader sees Soohyuk's punch coming and manages to dodge it by a hair. She thinks, relieved, that it's a good thing she dodged, and that it was very lucky she didn't underestimate that guy. With her eyes glowing intensely, she activates a magic spell in her hand. Without wasting any time, she lands a powerful punch right in Soohyuk's stomach, sending the boy flying several meters away. The woman comments that a strong guy like him is destined to draw attention. She asks where the hell he has been hiding all this time, since nobody had seen him until now. But, to the leader's shock, the dust settles and she sees Soohyuk drinking the blood from the director's body. The woman can't believe it and wonders if he really stopped to suck blood in the middle of a fight. With the old man's body thrown on the ground, Soohyuk starts snorting with rage and lets out a hate-filled scream. The woman glares at the agent and decides that, without a doubt, he needs to be executed right there. Readying her sword, she activates her sacred art. She calls Soohyuk to the fight, waiting for him to charge so she can finally finish him off. But, leaving the girl completely confused, Soohyuk simply drops to the ground, passed out. The woman lowers her guard and wonders what kind of madness that is, and what the hell just happened. After passing out, Soohyuk starts hearing a familiar voice. The voice calls him Team Leader Soohyuk. When he finally opens his eyes, he comes face to face with his former boss, the commander. The agent is left wondering what his superior is doing there. The commander asks, calmly, if he has woken up yet. Right beside him, that short-haired girl replies that yes, he is already awake. Soohyuk, totally lost, asks who they really are. When he tries to move, the protagonist realizes he is chained up. He doesn't understand anything that's going on. The short-haired woman stares right at him and tells the boy to pay close attention. She warns that, after evaluating his behavior, they have decided to execute him, calling him a vampire. This takes Soohyuk completely by surprise, and he wonders what that means and what crazy stuff that girl is talking about. Soohyuk asks how he is a vampire. He says that this is a joke because vampires do not exist. But the Vatican agent questions if he really thinks that. Soohyuk asks what the woman is doing, and then she bites her own finger, showing him a drop of blood. This makes Soohyuk's eyes turn red. The protagonist smells the blood and becomes ravenous, thinking only that he wants to drink it at any cost. After Soo-hyuk regains his senses, the agent asks if he believes it now. Soo-hyuk is very lost and does not understand what just happened. Soo-hyuk's commander says he cannot believe it, but apparently it seems to be true. They have a video of Soo-hyuk causing destruction on the ship, and the bodies were exactly as this person described. The protagonist wonders what the commander is implying, and if he really did that. The Vatican woman then questions if they issued an elimination mission without knowing what Anna really was, calling the agents reckless. Soo-hyuk asks if she discovered that Anna is a vampire, something that even the International Intelligence Service did not know. The woman responds that of course she did. Killing vampires is the job of her Vatican squad. According to the rules, they should have killed Soo-hyuk too, but she decides to give Soo-hyuk a unique opportunity to work as her subordinate. Lost, Soo-hyuk asks what she means. The agent explains that from what she has heard, they have a common enemy. Because of this, the woman does not want to waste her strength fighting amongst themselves, but rather join forces to kill Anna together, staring at Soo-hyuk with a confident smile. Now in another location, inside a room, Anna says that some are taking control of the barracks and absorbing the mafia. Anna asks why no one managed to capture a single insect while holding the remains of the body of a girl who had been totally dismembered. The injured girl says she is sorry, but Anna responds that this was expected and she should not have entrusted this task to her. Anna then kisses the girl, who feels something strange in her body. The girl realizes that this is Anna's blood, and her limbs begin to regenerate. After recovering her arms and legs, Anna warns that this is her last chance. The subordinate must bring the target to Anna's front. The girl leaves furious and thirsty for revenge. What she did not know was that there was another woman watching her from above, following each of her movements. Back to the present, inside a car, Soo-hyuk is accompanied by that Vatican woman. Soo-hyuk remembers a few days ago when the agent said that he could die as a vampire by her hands or work with her to kill Anna together. Soo-hyuk also remembers his commander warning that he should be careful. After all, it does not matter the reason. The agent that Soo-hyuk killed was from the director's faction, so the faction would have no other choice but to focus on Soo-hyuk too. Returning to the current moment, the woman says that Soo-hyuk's expression says it all, and asks if it is really that hard to believe that he is a vampire. Soo-hyuk asks why the agent brought him there. She replies that if it were not for her, all the factions would have already marked Soo-hyuk for death. Therefore, it would be better if they got revenge together. Soo-hyuk asks if he can trust her. The woman responds that of course not, but the enemy of her enemy is her friend, and for now, that is enough. While Soo-hyuk remains silent, the agent points to the main base of the squad, a sanctuary. Soo-hyuk asks if that is not a cathedral. The woman confirms that it is, because it attracts less attention and seems more normal. The protagonist observes the place and wonders what is inside. As they walk, Soo-hyuk asks if they should not enter the base, but the woman responds that that is not their destination. Furthermore, since the sanctuary is protected by sacred artifacts, Soo-hyuk, being a vampire, would not be able to enter. He then asks what they should do. The agent explains that even if Soo-hyuk becomes a member of the squad, at the moment he is just Anna's prey. Because of this, the woman classified him as a special case and decided to supervise him personally. In other words, Soo-hyuk will have to live with her. Entering the room, the woman explains that this hotel is affiliated with the squad. The place serves as a safe house and leaves no trace of records. Thinking about it, she mentions that they have not properly introduced themselves yet. The woman reveals that she is a member of the Vatican's secret squad and that her name is Mirror. The protagonist responds, saying his name is Kim Soo-hyuk. Then, Mirror says he probably has many questions in mind and should feel free to ask whatever he wants. Soo-hyuk's first question is precisely about the nature of vampires, and he asks Mirror to explain everything in detail. The agent realizes that he has finally accepted his new condition. Mirror explains that as long as they continue consuming human blood, vampires will never die. In addition, they possess physical abilities far superior to regular humans and have unique powers. The vast majority of these creatures originated from the blood of ancestral vampires, and currently, Anna is the only remaining ancestral vampire. At that moment, Soo-hyuk understands the origin of the transformation, remembering when he bit Anna's neck. Curious, Soo-hyuk asks how vampires can be killed. Mirror clarifies that, first of all, any vampire burns to death when exposed to sunlight, except for Soo-hyuk. This unusual immunity is exactly why Anna is hunting him down so relentlessly. However, by turning this unique trait into a tactical advantage, they can create a perfect opportunity to confront and eliminate Anna. But for the plan to work, Soo-hyuk needs to become much stronger, and Mirror promises to help him with this training. Mirror then asks if Soo-hyuk understood the real reason why she brought him there. Soo-hyuk replies that yes, he understands the situation clearly now. In fact, she is afraid of his potential. The deduction takes Mirror by surprise. Soo-hyuk continues, explaining that without the weakness to the sun, he could become something much worse than an ordinary vampire. Leaving him loose would be extremely dangerous, but killing him would mean losing a weapon of immense potential. Therefore, she used the revenge against Anna as a pretext to monitor him closely and eliminate him if he goes out of control. In either case, she has nothing to lose. Mirror smirks and admits that Soo-hyuk was not a top agent for nothing. In the end, he is still a monster, and taking him down is just part of her duty as a squad member. However, the desire to kill Anna is completely genuine, and to achieve that goal, she really intends to make him stronger. If he has any complaints, Soo-hyuk is free to speak up at any time. The young man fires back that he has faced death multiple times, and that as long as he can kill Anna, nothing else matters. Still, he makes it clear that he has no intention of submitting easily. Mirror thinks to herself that he just revealed his true intentions quite bluntly. Even so, the fact that his goal comes down to pure revenge makes him predictable and willing to cooperate. The agent finds this audacity fascinating and thinks that taming him over time will be quite enjoyable. Changing the subject, Mirror states that the introductions are over and that it is now time to eat. Without hesitation, she tells Soo-hyuk to bite her neck. Soo-hyuk is caught off guard and asks what she means by such a sudden demand. Mirror explains that like it or not, he has become a vampire, and a lack of blood impairs his movements and his clarity. Besides, his body seems to constantly crave blood, and Mirror knows very well that he would never accept killing innocent civilians to satisfy his hunger. The realization hits Soo-hyuk hard. He gets up and walks over to her. Mirror comments that her neck is starting to hurt from waiting and tells him to hurry up and drink. Even though hesitant, Soo-hyuk lunges forward and sinks his teeth into the agent's neck. His eyes glow a vivid crimson as he consumes her blood. An overwhelming surge of power takes over, sparking an insatiable urge to drink every single drop. Suddenly, a strange sensation runs through his body, and a voice echoes in his mind, saying that he is just as interesting as expected. Overcome by predatory instinct, Soo-hyuk pushes Mirror onto the bed, leaving the agent completely stunned. Soo-hyuk pulls back, realizing that this violent urge is the true instinct of vampires. Mirror gets up, regains her composure, and warns him that starting tomorrow, their routine will be intense, advising him to go to sleep immediately. She also leaves a stern warning, stating that if he lets his guard down, she will not hesitate to kill him. Soo-hyuk just watches her in silence, painfully realizing that he will have to drink blood every single day. His hands tremble slightly at the reality, but he reminds himself that this is the price of his revenge. Even if his body completely turns into a monster, his heart will not be corrupted until his comrades can finally rest in peace, because he will make sure to send that wretched woman straight to hell. Without saying another word, Soo-hyuk changes his clothes and lies down right beside the bed. As he falls asleep, Mirror stays awake, intrigued to see him lying right next to her, wondering what is really going on inside that man's head. Mirror stares at the room, finding it absurd that Soo-hyuk didn't see there was another room right across from them. And even if she didn't mention the other bed, he went ahead and laid down right next to her, which is simply unbelievable. Being a holy person of the church, sharing a bed with a man is a bit too much. Mirror gets really nervous about this whole situation. She never imagined Soo-hyuk would be like this, and thinks the guy is a total degenerate, wondering what kind of perverted thoughts are crossing his mind. But when she turns and looks at Soo-hyuk, she realizes he is fast asleep. Seeing that it wasn't a big deal after all, she decides to calm her mind and starts praying. Except, at that moment, Soo-hyuk can't sleep in the same spot, and simply rolls over, throwing his arm over Mirror. She tries to hold back from falling into temptation, but then she notices that Soo-hyuk's hand is resting right on her stomach. This makes the agent even more embarrassed, and she ends up letting out a scream. The next day, in a private room, Mirror announces that today she will explain how to kill a vampire. As Soo-hyuk already knows, normal weapons don't work on them. The protagonist just stares at her, still bearing the red mark of a slap on his face. Mirror then explains that there are two truly effective ways to kill these creatures: sunlight and silver. Even just touching silver causes burns on them, and using weapons made of this material to decapitate or pierce the heart delivers an instant fatal blow. Hearing this, Soo-hyuk realizes that this is why Anna didn't die that day on the ship, since his weapon wasn't made of silver. Mirror adds that, other than that, vampires cannot be killed, and she asks if he has any questions before they start training. Soo-hyuk then takes the chance to apologize for last night, saying he has some weird sleeping habits. But, in that exact moment, Mirror punches him in the face. Soo-hyuk manages to block it and asks what the hell she is doing. Even more irritated, Mirror tells him to stop messing around, warning that he needs to master at least the basics. She says he will start immediately, and that what he needs most right now is combat experience against non-human entities. By actually fighting, Soo-hyuk will become the strongest member of the Special Forces, while also gaining more and more strength as a vampire through blood. Mirror tells him to get ready, and charges at him with everything she has. This time Soo-hyuk can't block it. He always thought there were no humans stronger than the agents, but now, taking a solid punch to the face, he realizes he was just a frog in a well. Even so, the protagonist thinks that no matter how hard the path ahead may be, he will resist and survive until the end of this hell, because he is a secret agent and he won't give up. The narration skips forward and shows that, after several months of training, Soo-hyuk started to make progress and gain strength. But Mirror still thinks it's far from enough. Suddenly the door opens, and a squad member excuses himself to Miss Mirror. She asks what the problem is, and the guy apologizes for interrupting, but warns that she needs to go to the sanctuary immediately. Mirror is surprised, wondering what happened over there. She turns to Soo-hyuk, tells him to stay put, and says she will be right back. While putting on her jacket, Mirror asks the messenger why the sanctuary is calling for her. The guy replies that they didn't give a reason and that he doesn't have all the details. But Mirror thinks she already has an idea of which entity could have summoned her like this, figuring that they have definitely arrived. Meanwhile, right outside the hotel, a suspicious car pulls up. Up high in an apartment, that girl sent by Anna watches the car and catches a scent in the air. She smiles and says she finally picked up the trail, confirming that Soo-hyuk is right there. That night, Mirror introduces herself to a man in the sanctuary. She asks what brings him there, assuming he is a direct envoy from the Vatican. The man says it is an honor to meet her. He thanks the bishop for her hard work, stating that they are all always grateful to her. But he wants to skip the formalities and get straight to the point, asking if she really brought a vampire to the base. Meanwhile, at night in the hotel, a man approaches the reception desk saying he wants to check in. The clerk agrees and asks for his ID, also asking how many people are in his group. The man replies that there are not many, only about 200 people, and immediately pulls out a knife, killing the clerk. The other receptionist is in shock and starts screaming in fear. A priest, who was right behind them, announces that he will handle it. He and another companion take on the task of evacuating the civilians and reporting the attack to the control room. But, to their surprise, a bright light appears at the scene. Several cars shatter the glass windows and crash into the hotel. Right after, several of Anna's henchmen get out of the vehicles and charge at the three priests with everything they have. The lead priest asks how they dare invade the place and immediately starts attacking them. But, to his surprise, the cut he made on one of the enemy's chest instantly regenerates. The invader starts drooling and, knife in hand, finishes off the first priest. After they kill everyone in the lobby, their boss comments that the Vatican squad is really a nuisance. He deduces that Soo-hyuk must be somewhere around there and states that they will have no problem dealing with the situation. Right behind them, that girl from before appears. She orders the henchman to bring the target to her, complaining that she worked very hard looking for him. She decides to take over the control room and says she will join them later. Very excited, she asks an ally if they will be able to eat until they are full when all this is over. This ally is none other than Coco, the leader of Squadron 6 of the Yakuza faction. The girl agrees, says she understands the plan, and tells her she will see her later. While going up in the elevator, this subordinate thinks that Mira must also be busy at her post. Therefore, the only ones left in the hotel are just the small fry. Even so, as a precaution, she brought the henchmen who use that stuff, guaranteeing there is no way they can fail. Except, to the girl's shock, as soon as the elevator door opens, she comes face to face with 4 of her dead henchmen. She wonders how these guys were defeated so quickly, guessing if perhaps there is a high-level bishop inside. But, to her surprise, a voice rings out right behind her, saying it has been a while. When she looks, it is Soo-hyuk who appears, asking if she was looking for him. The scene shifts back to the cathedral. The Vatican envoy discusses with Mirror her decision to bring a vampire into the squad. He states that he does not doubt her choice, but that he wants to see the details at the next bishop's meeting. As he already suspected, he asks if she has been monitoring the situation closely, and Mirror confirms that she has. She explains that during the past 3 months, there were no factors that posed a threat, and that Soo-hyuk underwent the Vatican's rigorous training. Mirror confesses that she does not know if this vampire will lead them to ruin or to salvation. But she has already noticed something unique. He is a red-eyed vampire capable of standing under the radiant sunlight. Back at the hotel, Soo-hyuk faces the invading vampire and states with conviction that he is going to settle this score today. After he says that, the two begin to fight. The woman thinks this is insane and wonders what he has been doing all this time to get so strong. Soo-hyuk keeps pressuring her while she cannot understand how he became so powerful. The protagonist says he will return her words exactly as she said them, since she held out for a long time. Then, he pulls her and sweeps her legs. When she falls to the ground, he pins her down and announces that this is the end. The woman realizes he predicted her movement. But, to her surprise, he stops at the very last second. She wonders what the hell happened for him to stop his attack. Meanwhile, Soo-hyuk thinks this is a huge problem, as his body just stopped moving. At that moment, a new person appears right behind them, commenting that it looks like everyone is gathered. It is a woman accompanied by several giant snakes, and one of them is even swallowing a priest. She observes the scene and concludes that he must be Soo-hyuk. This woman is the leader of the Yakuza's 5th squad, Katarina. The protagonist wonders what kind of messed up situation this is, and if it is happening because of that woman. Soo-hyuk's opponent gets up and tells Katarina to hurry up and subdue him. But Katarina tells her to calm down, saying she didn't need to be told because she was already planning to do it anyway. Suddenly, Katarina's snake bites the woman's neck. She wonders what the hell Katarina is doing, as the snake begins to wrap around her. After the woman is restrained, Soo-hyuk wonders if Katarina wasn't there to help her allies. The captured woman questions why Katarina is doing this. Katarina answers that it is because she always wanted an indestructible toy. She thinks that no matter how beautiful a human is, in the end, they always die or turn ugly. That is why she always wanted a male vampire and didn't expect to find one so soon. Katarina then orders Soo-hyuk to come to her. He doesn't understand why his body is moving on its own, controlled by some kind of manipulation ability. She simply places her hand on his chest and declares that they will be her slaves, moving only by her will for all eternity. However, the captured woman states that Lady Anna will not allow this. But Katarina fires back, saying that Anna has already allowed it, and if they secure Soo-hyuk's capture, there won't be any problem. Next, Katarina orders the snake to eliminate the woman and her useless friend. The captured woman doesn't understand and thinks it is a lie, believing that Lady Anna would never say such a thing, and then she faints. Soo-hyuk wonders what the hell is going on there. Katarina approaches the fallen woman and questions how such a simple mission dragged on for months. She says the woman showed off for a long time with that useless talent of hers, but in the end she worked hard. Katarina orders the snake to devour her and says goodbye. But, to her surprise, a girl appears at the scene calling for Ayaka. Katarina glares at her and watches the girl approach. The girl arrives looking very happy, saying she did everything she needed to. However, to her shock, she comes face to face with the snake and asks what happened to Ayaka. Katarina replies that it was that guy's fault, pointing at Soo-hyuk. To the protagonist's surprise, the little girl starts crying. He thinks that, in the end, the number of enemies has only increased and that having to deal with that woman is already exhausting enough. Katarina tells the girl not to worry because they managed to capture Soo-hyuk and will return to Lady Anna. Katarina already positions the snake behind the girl's back, ready to launch a surprise attack. But the crying girl asks if it was really that guy who did that to Ayaka. Katarina confirms that it was. However, the girl doubts it and asks why. Then Ayaka smells like Katarina's own venom, glaring at the leader with intense rage. Katarina realizes she has been busted. And just like that, the scene shifts to the past. We see Ayaka saying she's scared and wants to go to her mom. But, to her surprise, someone appears right in front of her, introduces herself as Coco, and asks for her name. Back in the present, Ayaka wakes up and asks about Coco. She looks to the side and only sees Kim Soo-hyuk. Our boy asks if she's finally awake while she can't even understand how he's able to move. This rapid recovery of his is truly on another level. She asks how Coco is doing, and our boy says her situation isn't the best. Ayaka gets up, looks over, and sees her friend fighting against several giant snakes. Coco manages to grab one of them by the mouth, starts screaming in pure rage, and rips its head right off. Kim Soo-hyuk points out that she's holding her own, but it won't last much longer. Because of the venomous snakes, she won't be able to get anywhere near that woman. On top of that, her speed is dropping due to sheer exhaustion. Ayaka says that if she keeps this up, she'll end up dying, and they need to save her. But Kim Soo-hyuk blatantly tells her that with her body in that state, she'll be nothing but dead weight. He then demands that she share some information about that snake lady. Ayaka asks what he means by that. Our boy explains that if the three of them, her friend, and him, fight together, they actually have a shot at winning. She questions if he seriously wants to form an alliance, considering he was just trying to kill her a moment ago. He casually replies that right now, it's their best option. She tells him not to be ridiculous, and asks how she could possibly trust him. Meanwhile, he just starts laughing and says that, well, then there's nothing else to be done. Meanwhile, Katarina is thinking about how she ended up using way more energy than normal and wasted a lot of blood, especially dealing with that unexpected nuisance. She wonders why on earth the girl hasn't been poisoned yet. There's no way that little brat could detoxify herself from her venom. That's when Katarina finally realizes it. The girl had been holding her breath the whole time, and that's why the poison didn't work on her. Suddenly, Katarina sees Coco closing the distance and landing a massive punch straight to her stomach. Katarina screams as she's sent flying out of the building. After that, Coco finally takes a breath, saying she would have died if the fight had dragged on any longer. She looks around for Ayaka, asking if she's okay, and then spots Kim Soo-hyuk and Ayaka down below. But, to Coco's shock, she suddenly drops to her knees, realizing her vision is getting blurry. Before she even notices, a snake manages to bite her. Katarina admits she underestimated her way too much, and realizes just how close the two of them really are. Katarina approaches her, saying this is actually quite interesting. She guarantees that Coco and the friend she was so desperately looking for will stay together forever, inside the stomach of her precious snake. The snake immediately lunges forward with its mouth wide open. But, to Katarina's absolute shock, someone slices the snake right in half. Ayaka shows up and says they will indeed always be together, but definitely not inside a snake's stomach. Coco is overjoyed to see her friend, while Katarina is left wondering how she managed to detoxify from that venom, something that only she and Anna were supposed to be able to neutralize. The scene then flashes back to a few minutes earlier, showing our boy getting ready to attack her. But, to Ayaka's surprise, he actually slices his own hand. She asks what the hell he just did, and he answers with a quote he heard once. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." He states that for now, that's more than enough. He points out that she must be furious and completely exhausted after giving it her all, and now she's on the verge of losing her friend. He tells her he understands that perfectly. He then offers her his own blood and orders her to drink it. Ayaka suddenly remembers her friend striking that exact same pose in the past. Right after that, Kim Soo-hyuk appears right next to Katerina and asks if she's ever heard the saying that the most terrifying person is the one who has nothing left to lose. He warns her that when you face someone like that, your death is inevitable. And just like that, back at the cathedral, a priest shows up and tells Bishop Mirror that they have a problem. A huge number of vampires has invaded the hotel, which leaves her completely shocked. The scene then cuts back to our boy, who's busy attacking one of those snakes. Ayaka warns him that the enemy can transform her own body into a snake and command the others. If he gets bitten by one of them and inhales the poisonous mist, his body will be paralyzed, and he'll be easily controlled in a numbed state. Kim Soo-hyuk thinks that, fortunately, the mist doesn't last very long, but they need to close the distance right now. He starts slicing through some snakes, but quickly realizes that, at the end of the day, they're like a hydra, constantly growing back without stopping. Just then, a snake manages to block his knife, and he spots others coming straight at him. Taking advantage of the opening, Ayaka steps up, slashes through all of them, and tells him to pull himself together. She asks if he's really going to die just because he lost his knife. She then explains that the woman's powers consume blood, so those snakes won't keep regenerating forever. Since she's planning to drain the enemy's energy, she asks him to handle the snakes somehow while she goes to help Coco. He says he gets it, and immediately grabs Coco's attention, telling her they're temporary allies. He says he's going to detoxify her, and orders her to drink his blood. After that, she has to help both him and her friend. He hands over his blood and states that this is the only way they'll survive. Just like that, Coco finally recovers. But right after, she punches Kim Soo-hyuk square in the face and jumps on top of him. He wonders if she's being controlled. Coco yells at Ayaka that she caught Kim Soo-hyuk, but her friend replies that they now need to kill Katerina together with him. Coco asks if she's serious, glares at our boy, and then runs off. Now, seeing the two of them together, Katerina thinks her plan of using them to find Kim Soo-hyuk was perfect. However, seeing that he managed to break the venom's effect and use them after detoxifying was very typical of him. Katerina is certain she needs him for herself. Kim Soo-hyuk thinks the situation is great. They're getting closer, and it won't take much longer. But, to the surprise of all three, Katerina ramps up her mist even more. Our boy starts shouting, warning that the poisonous smoke is closing in, and tells everyone to hold their breath. Ayaka says the mist will dissipate soon anyway. The reason for this smoke screen is that Katerina is planning to wipe them all out at once. Our boy analyzes the situation. Knowing he is also a target, Katerina knows Ayaka is fast and a great solo fighter. Therefore, her main prey has to be Coco. Coco charges straight at the enemy. Katerina, furious, asks how she dares lay hands on her body and swears she's going to kill her first. But at that exact moment, Ayaka jumps toward her friend, shielding Coco from the attack. Coco starts screaming in despair. Kim Soo-hyuk cuts through the snakes and says he had already anticipated Katerina's reaction. If she aimed for Coco, one of them would definitely get hit to protect her. He quickly calls out to Ayaka, telling her to hurry over so he can give her some of his blood to heal her. She says she doesn't need it, but he insists that time is of the essence and tells her to hurry up. However, when they look closely, they are completely stunned. The snake that bit Ayaka had something special about it. Realizing the situation, Coco says that this can't be true and can't be real. And the scene ends with Kim Soo-hyuk's silver knife stabbed right into Ayaka's chest. And now, the scene shifts to another flashback from the past. We see Ayaka remembering when she was a child, the moment her father apologized to her and said she would have to listen to whatever that man had to say from then on. Her mother asked if she understood, while little Ayaka thought she had been sold off, since her parents were drug addicts. In a group with several other children, a man was saying that this is the red one, and that they should be good friends with the red one. In that place, they were injecting vampire blood into the kids. She remembers starting to scream in pain right after that operation. Ayaka recalls that the daily repetition of medical experiments made everyone start acting weirder and weirder, and one by one they all died. It was terrifying for her. As time went on, she thought it would be better if she were just alone and froze to death right then and there. But, to her surprise, someone caught her attention. The little girl introduced herself as Coco, and Ayaka remembers finding that absolutely fascinating. Coco managed to smile in the midst of all that chaos, even while living in hell. And because of her, Ayaka also laughed along. Every single day they spent there was a living nightmare, but they could endure all of it because they were together, relying on each other. However, that small glimpse of happiness didn't last long. That same man ordered them to isolate the subjects according to their dosage. The control group to the left, and the experimental group to the right, and that was the exact day the two of them were separated. As they parted ways, Ayaka threw her jacket to Coco and told her to keep wearing it, because that way she'd make sure to find her again. And so Ayaka, feeling happy, said she understood. A few years later, with Ayaka still locked up, someone told her she'd be staying in a new place from now on. To her complete surprise, she spotted her old jacket, recognized Coco, and asked if she was really alive. She had thought she would never see her again. But when she took a good look at her friend, Ayaka realized she seemed like a completely different person. Coco, confused, asked who she was. Ayaka, quite surprised, replied that she was someone who wanted to be her friend. She thought about how Coco had saved her in the past, and now it was her turn to protect her. The two of them finally managed to survive that hell, but in the end, that was only the beginning. Someone was telling them that one was physically unstable stable and the other mentally unstable. So, what was the difference between them and normal humans, and why should they even keep them alive instead of just killing them? It was then that Ayaka realized a new hell had just begun, and she genuinely wanted to die. If she didn't meet their expectations, she could be discarded at any moment. But the thought of being able to live alongside Coco kept her from breaking down under that level of humiliation. The scene cuts back to the present. She remembers once again the conversation she had with Kim Soo-hyuk. When he offered her his own blood, with her friend right in front of her, she feels that she finally understands everything. She realizes that, for the first time in her life, someone actually understood her. And in the end, it was all for him, her enemy. With her body already shattering into several pieces, Eika says that to survive, she dirtied her hands countless times and couldn't even do anything about it. But if it's him, he'll be able to do what needs to be done. She asks him to listen very closely and shares some secret information with him. Right after, she simply kisses him on the lips. And right before passing away, she thanks him. Eika reaches her hand out to Coco, asking her not to cry because the two of them will always be together. After Eika fades away, only her clothes are left behind on the floor. Coco, overwhelmed by a devastating rage, starts to scream, and she screams out her friend's name. And just like that, Katarina says, "Poor Ayaka. She spent her whole life supporting her friend, but in the end, she ends up dying because of her." She asks if they finally realize that resistance is futile, and that they should go straight to Anna, because she will treat them well, unlike those other guys. Kim Soo-hyuk says he understands. Katarina asks if he's being serious. He confirms, saying he understands Ayaka, and that he knows exactly what he needs to do. Katarina realizes that, apparently, he's just talking to himself. But Coco tells Katarina to bring her friend back. She wants Ayaka back, and charges straight at Katarina. Meanwhile, Katarina, full of confidence, thinks the girl is just way too weak. But, to the surprise of all three, a holy light appears right between them. They wonder what just happened. They soon realize it's the Vatican. Kim Soo-hyuk thinks they finally arrived, and that this power must belong to Bishop Mirror. He asks Mirror to calm down now, since the girl isn't her enemy. But, to his surprise, he sees a shot coming straight his way. He quickly manages to dodge and wonders why they are shooting at him. To the surprise of the three of them, the newcomer says the place is crawling with vampires, but tells her team not to worry, because she's going to purify all of them. Katarina thinks that attack is full of divine power, and that the glow is so strong that even the light itself will kill the vampires. There's no doubt in her mind, this woman is a bishop. The blonde Bishop Lucia approaches and says they sure have some nerve attacking a hotel belonging to a Vatican squad like that. But Katarina, smirking, says the only one who has the nerve to show off is her, since she brought a bunch of puppets. Katarina immediately unleashes her mist over all of them. Kim Soo-hyuk orders everyone to hold their breath. If they inhale the mist, they'll be paralyzed and become her slaves. Quickly, Katarina charges at Bishop Lucia, asking how she plans to block her attack. But, to her surprise, a barrier appears. Lucia asks if all she has to do is block it like this, as she reaches out and destroys the head of that snake. Our boy thinks the woman can handle these snakes easily, and that she is incredibly strong. Lucia, with her eyes glowing, asks who's going to be next. When the mist dissipates, our boy realizes that Katarina is gone. There are no more poisonous clouds, only the destroyed head of the snake. Bishop Lucia starts to get frustrated, asking where she went. She asks her squad members where that woman could have escaped to, while they ask her to calm down. But Kim Soo-hyuk thinks the snake head she cut off looked a bit strange. Katarina must have hidden and escaped from inside the snake's head. Our boy says he figured out how she got away. Bishop Lucia says they need to chase after the enemy fast. But before that, they must shoot the remaining vampires. Quickly, Kim Soo-hyuk grabs Coco and runs for cover. Meanwhile, Lucia says she will kill him painlessly, since he was a good vampire. But Kim Soo-hyuk shouts that he is not an enemy and that he is an ally of Mirror. But Lucia shoots back, saying the Vatican doesn't negotiate with vampires. And besides, claiming to be an ally of her sister Mirror is a bit ridiculous. Meanwhile, Kim Soo-hyuk thinks maybe the Vatican didn't share that information and wonders how they can avoid this misunderstanding. He tells Bishop Lucia that he'll prove what he's saying and shouts, "Room 1701. Lucia asks what that was all about out of nowhere. He replies that it's the room where he's living with Mirror. Immediately, she unleashes a burst of holy energy and is completely shocked, asking herself if her sister Mirror is really living with a vampire. She wonders how long this has been going on. Kim Soo-hyuk then says that today, Mirror is wearing black pants. That revelation deeply shocks the girl. And after some time, Bishop Mirror heads towards the hotel and realizes it actually was attacked. She starts running, complaining that those vampires are bastards who took advantage of her absence to attack the place. She thinks she can't let this slide and fears they might have taken Kim Soo-hyuk. She shouts for him, saying she heard a strong vampire had arrived and asks what the situation is. But Mirror stares at the scene and doesn't understand what the hell is going on. Kim Soo-hyuk explains that the Yakuza and 3 vampire leaders invaded the place. One of the leaders was killed, another fled, and the last one was captured. Mira comments that they really had a narrow escape this time. If he had fallen into Anna's hands, it would be a total disaster. Kim Soo-hyuk says the enemies found out when she would be away and came to attack. Apparently their intelligence network is no joke, and that hotel is no longer safe. She absolutely agrees, saying they need to change locations and can't be separated for even a second. Mira looks at our boy and seems quite satisfied, commenting that the guy who almost died is facing real vampires for the first time. She points out that it was a fight against 3 of them, and he still made it out alive. With combat training that goes beyond human strength and speed, and getting stronger by consuming blood. Even if his progress seems a bit slow, if he keeps evolving like this, he will eventually be able to kill Anna. Because of that, she states that from now on, she can't leave her post so carelessly. Kim Soo-hyuk questions this decision, asking what she means by that. He asks if she wouldn't leave if her superiors called her in. He then warns her that there's something she needs to know, as he obtains some important information. She asks what it is. He reveals that he figured out a way to get stronger quickly, just like Anna, which completely shocks the girl. He tells her that the leader of the Yakuza's 7th squad, Ayaka, gave him this information right before she was killed. The rule is, the more blood vampires consume, the stronger they get. So even if he gets stronger with his current method, it would still be impossible to fight Anna. But if it's vampire blood, that's a whole different story. By consuming vampire blood, it's possible to steal the power they've accumulated, and if certain conditions are met, you can even gain their abilities. Mira tells him to wait, saying they can't blindly trust that source of information. She asks what those conditions would be, since the requirement to gain the abilities doesn't seem clear at all. But he replies that it's definitely worth a try. After drinking Ayaka's blood, bullets seem to slow down, and he was able to use her ability for a brief moment. Considering that Anna has 7 vampires under her command, now he knows exactly what he needs to do. He has to drink the blood of all her subordinate vampires. Mira says she understands the situation. That's the reason why he brought the captured enemy. The scene then shows Coco tied up on the bed. Mira changes the subject and mentions that the Council of Bishops is about to take place. Our boy asks what that is. She explains that it's an assembly where the bishops of the Vatican gather, and they usually discuss the situation regarding Anna's forces. Meanwhile, right outside the room, Lucia is eavesdropping on the conversation and can't believe what she's hearing. She hears Kim Soo-hyuk saying, "You give this to me every day. What do you mean by a reward?" Lucia is shocked and asks herself, what does he mean every day? What is this thing she gives him? Inside, our boy starts consuming Mira's blood. She comments that he's really changed since the beginning. Back then, he struggled to restrain himself and not lose control, but now he seems to be doing it quite calmly. Our boy tells her that if it hurts too much, she just needs to let him know. That sentence makes Lucia's mind race wildly outside, imagining all sorts of crazy things. She thinks they might be doing something indecent, and she can't understand what the hell is going on with her sister Mira. To make matters worse, she overhears another part of the conversation. Mira asks if she should call her sister Lucia in as well, but says she'll ask for her opinion first. This shocks the girl even more. She wonders what they mean by calling her in, and what the hell they want the 3 of them to do together. With that thought, her nose starts bleeding uncontrollably. And just like that, Mira opens the door and calls for Lucia. She comes face to face with her sister lying in a pool of blood, absolutely dying of embarrassment. And just like that, Lucia approaches Mira, telling her she'll see her at the bishop's meeting. However, the bishop glares at our boy, clearly pissed off, and immediately drives away in her car. Mira then points out that Lucia has left, and their real problem right now is the vampire. Hearing this, Coco snaps back, saying Mira shouldn't act so high and mighty just because she's a bishop, since she's still a nobody. The vampire demands they bring her fresh blood and a comfortable place to rest right away. She claims that only after they do that will they have the joy of having her as a servant. But in that exact moment, Soo-hyuk punches Coco right in the head, telling the girl to shut her mouth. Mira questions if this creature is actually going to be useful to their group. Soo-hyuk replies that, like he said before, he needs vampire blood. He explains that if they treat her as an enemy, draining her blood before eliminating her is their only option. However, if they keep her as an ally, she will naturally keep producing blood, and considering her tracking abilities and combat skills, she will definitely be useful. Mira agrees with his logic, but still doubts they can actually control her. Meanwhile, Coco hides behind Soo-hyuk, grumbling that this kind of aggression is exactly what you'd expect from the Vatican, calling them violent. Confused, Mira asks why the vampire is acting so docile around the boy. Soo-hyuk just stares at her in silence and replies that he doesn't know. He then reflects on his own past, remembering how he was once consumed by rage. When his former comrades died, he eliminated the director and the team members who had sacrificed them, slaughtering them all without mercy. Now, looking at this girl who lost her only friend, he knows for a fact that she is also broken inside. Soo-hyuk gets Coco's attention and declares they are going to kill her former master Anna. He lets her know it would be nice to have her help in the process, but it isn't absolutely necessary necessary. Coco can just die right there as a vampire, or she can seek revenge for her friend by fighting alongside them. He leaves the choice in her hands. Coco replies that she always hated Anna since the master was constantly making Ayaka's life a living hell. She states that she hates the Vatican even more for hurting her friend, but makes it crystal clear she will never forgive whoever killed her. With bloodlust in her eyes, she promises that if they help kill that bastard Anna, she will do anything for them. Mira understands the situation and says she'll make sure the girl gets accepted into their group. However, she warns Soo-hyuk that the vampire is now entirely his responsibility. If Coco loses control or hurts anyone, they will deal with her immediately. Later on, Mira instantly regrets agreeing to this, since the creature is nothing but a headache. As someone who kills vampires, she wonders why the hell she has to play babysitter for this little puppy. In the end, she knows they are only doing this so Soo-hyuk can consume the girl's blood. She tries to stay positive, believing all this effort is for the greater good. But the peace doesn't last long. While Coco is taking a shower, a little bit of shampoo gets in the vampire's eyes. As Soo-hyuk is calmly cleaning his knife outside, he hears a piercing scream. Coco starts shrieking, accusing Mira of pouring poison into her eyes, and begs Soo-hyuk to save her, already trying to bolt out of the bathroom in tears. But Mira grabs her tightly, ordering her not to step out until she's completely clean. Listening to all this chaos, our protagonist gets lost in memories of the past, thinking back to when he was with his old squad. Back then, they used to joke around, saying they should now call him Team Leader Soo-hyuk. He would ask them to stop out of pure embarrassment, but his comrades would just laugh, telling him he should treat them better now that he was the boss. Soo-hyuk would jokingly ask if he was only considered the leader when it was convenient for them. Right after that, the commander would walk into the room, calling everyone out for a mission. Back in those days, our boy was genuinely happy. He wonders how much time has passed since then, missing the days when his life was loud and full of energy. Now, at the end of the day, Mira is lying in her bed thinking this whole situation is completely insane. Coco doesn't listen to her at all, but perfectly obeys every single word Soo-hyuk says, acting like a fully trained little puppy. The boy told her to sit, then told her to put on her clothes, and right after, he went over and dried the vampire's hair himself. Mira starts wondering if Coco is treating her so poorly because she hurt Ayaka in the past. She recalls the girl's words, promising revenge against the one who killed her friend, and swearing loyalty if they eliminated Anna. Mira figures that, having lost someone precious and being thrown all alone into enemy territory, it's only natural for the vampire to be so sensitive and defensive. Deep down, she knows she should try to understand her side. But, interrupting her deep thoughts, Mira suddenly feels a bite out of nowhere. Looking down, she sees Coco biting her hand with full force. Startled, she asks what the hell the girl is doing, and the vampire simply replies that she is hungry. The bishop snaps back, annoyed, saying Coco was finally showing her true monstrous face. Despite Mira yelling and cursing at the vampire, Soo-hyuk doesn't want to bother with their bickering. He just lies back down to sleep, mentally thanking the bishop for her hard work in taking care of the girl. Except, in the middle of the night, someone sneaks into his bed. It's Coco, hugging the protagonist tightly and whispering in a possessive tone that he belongs to her now. And now, at dawn, our boy wakes up and notices something on his bed sheets. When he looks, it's Coco sleeping right on top of him. He wonders what she is doing there, thinking it's dangerous because of the sunlight. He tells Coco to wake up, but in that moment she hugs him once again, pressing her body tightly against the bed. He asks what the hell she is doing all of a sudden, but soon after he notices some strange sounds. When he looks closely, she is crying and calling out for Ayaka. He finally understands the situation. Since he drank Ayaka's blood, he ended up carrying her scent. That's why Coco follows his orders so well. Soo-hyuk understands what it's like to lose a precious comrade, as he went through the exact same thing. So, he comforts her, saying that everything is okay and that he is there now. Back to training. Our boy continues his training session with Mira. She lunges forward to punch him, but he manages to dodge and immediately tries to counterattack with another punch. However, Mira easily catches his hand, pointing out that he has suddenly improved and his reaction times are definitely faster than before. Our boy replies that he thinks it's all thanks to Ayaka's blood. Mira says that's a good thing and that he needs to use it to his advantage. He asks what she means by that. She then reveals that today is the day of the bishop's meeting, completely surprising our boy. Mira explains that his existence still isn't official, but today will be the day they decide on his final admission. If the order considers him unsuitable, things will get complicated. Soo-hyuk interrupts her and asks what happens in that case. She replies casually, saying that of course he will be executed immediately, but she tells him to relax because she believes he has a lot of potential. With his ability to lure out hidden vampires and his rapid growth that allows him to rival the captains in such a short amount of time, he will contribute greatly to the order. With those two things in his favor, plus the fact that he is the key to ending the crusade by killing Anna, she thinks the bishops will definitely accept him. She then asks if he isn't feeling confident. Soo-hyuk states that he was already strong enough as a human, and now that he's learned how to get stronger as a vampire, killing Anna is only a matter of time, and they have plenty of things to do. So, they should just get this bishop's meeting over with right now. They get ready and head straight for the meeting. As they walk, Soo-hyuk thinks to himself that Anna, the squad leaders, and even him, who became a vampire for the Vatican, are all demons from the very same hell. If the Vatican is going to use him, then he's going to use the Vatican right back. He doesn't care either way, because all he wants is to get his own revenge against that bastard who destroyed his life. He has already secured the blood of 2 of the 7 leaders, and now he is only 5 steps away from reaching Anna. He needs to drain the blood of every single one of them to get stronger. The scene shifts to Katerina, who says, "So that's what you think, Anna?" Anna asks what she means by that. Katerina answers that since Ayaka's death has been confirmed, Coco is probably with the Vatican by now, but Anna says she doesn't care about her, only about Soo-hyuk. Katerina confirms that yes, things are going exactly as she planned, and he is growing well. He managed to neutralize the poison that had transformed him. Anna gives a small smirk, stating that he will come to them without them even needing to intervene. Until then, Katerina should focus only on her mission, and Anna shows her a vial of blood. Her mission right now is to focus on the bishop's meeting. Arriving at the cathedral, Mirror announces that the meeting will be held right there. Soo-hyuk asks if this is the same sanctuary they saw earlier. She replies that this is the cathedral beneath the Vatican, and it also serves as a regular cathedral to gather information. Since he can't enter the main sanctuary with all the sacred artifacts, they arranged for the meeting to happen there, exclusively for him. Our boy appreciates the effort, but asks why they need to go to such lengths. She says the order instructed her to keep him under control, and there's nothing she can do about it. Besides, there will be bishops who are actively hostile toward him. But she wraps up by saying that, even so, he is much better than Coco. Except, to the surprise of both, someone appears right behind them, calling out for Mirror. The man then asks if this guy next to her is her new vampire. After she looks at him, the man, who is accompanied by a little girl, asks once again if this is her new vampire. Mirror replies that it's been a while, addressing him as Bishop Dominic. He agrees, saying it really has been a long time. Staring at our boy, the bishop asks if he is Kim Soo-hyuk, the vampire who used to be a black agent for the NIS. He also questions if the kid is now trying to join the Vatican. To our protagonist's surprise, Dominic places a hand on his shoulder and says this is great news. He states that Soo-hyuk will be an excellent addition to their combat power, and praises Mirror for finding such a hidden gem. The bishop confirms this and explains that it happened during a mission, highlighting that the boy fought toe-to-toe against the squad leaders. Hearing this, the bishop glares at Soo-hyuk and asks if he fought against those weaklings. He comments that, if it were up to him, he would have burned all the vampires to a crisp, and complains that it's a real shame he wasn't there to see the fight. Suddenly, Dominic lightly burns Soo-hyuk's shoulder, quickly apologizing right after and saying his bad. He brushes it off, saying whatever, it was nice meeting him anyway. He says his goodbyes, mentioning he'll see them later at the meeting, and calls out for Hilda to follow him. The little girl happily replies yes. She then greets Mirror, saying it's been a while since they last saw each other. Right after, she stares at our boy and gives him a quick hello as well. Soo-hyuk asks Mirror if that little girl is actually a bishop. She confirms that she is, explaining that it's a special case since she's a bit different. Mirror adds that he must have noticed the tension already, because to most members of the Vatican, Soo-hyuk is a massive thorn in their side. She warns him that there are people like Dominic, but others might be even more aggressive. To Mirror's surprise, someone comes running in her direction. When she realizes who it is, it's the blonde girl. Mirror asks what Lucia is doing there, pointing out that it seems they've been running into each other a lot lately. Lucia cheerfully asks if she doesn't like that. Then, the blonde glares at our boy once again. Lucia turns to Mirror and asks if she has seen Miss Cecilia around. The bishop says no. Lucia then says she thinks Mirror should be more careful when it comes to Cecilia. Mirror asks why, and the blonde explains that Cecilia hates vampires more than anyone else. She guarantees that no matter how much the Vatican wants the boy, Cecilia will strongly oppose him. Mirror puts a hand to her head and thanks her for the heads up, but tells Lucia not to worry. She explains that the two of them just have different opinions, but she considers herself even more qualified as a bishop. But suddenly, Soo-hyuk senses a threatening presence and yells out for Mirror. By the time the girl realizes what's happening, a trail of raw power is heading straight for Soo-hyuk. Moving quickly, Mirror steps in the way and deflects the attack. Lucia asks if she's okay. Mirror, glaring right at Cecilia, asks what the hell she is trying to do. As she approaches, Cecilia replies that she is merely fulfilling her duty as a bishop. She throws the question right back, asking what Mirror is doing, and why a bishop who defends people from vampires is actively protecting one. Cecilia ties up her hair, declaring that they don't need any more introductions, and orders Mirror to get out of the way. Lucia tries to intervene, asking her to calm down since they brought the boy there at the cardinal's request. But Cecilia says she's just doing her job and tells Lucia to back off. At that point, Mirror says things are getting interesting. She challenges Cecilia, asking what she's going to do if she refuses to move. Boiling with rage, Cecilia charges right at her, saying she already warned her, Lucia activates her power and begs them to calm down. But Mirror just tells her to relax. Gripping her sword, Mirror warns that she's going to hit back just as hard, and the two clash head-on. The clash of their two powers triggers a massive explosion. But what they definitely weren't expecting was for someone to be standing right in the middle of them. The person asks what all this mess is about. Mirror looks completely shocked at the scene, and so does Cecilia, seeing that the newcomer stopped both of their attacks with her bare hands. Meanwhile, Soohyuk wonders how she blocked that impact so easily, admitting he has no idea who this woman is. Immediately, all of them drop to their knees in front of her, welcoming Her Majesty, the Cardinal. The new woman simply glares down at the three of them, revealing herself to be Helena. And so, the girl apologizes for her bad behavior earlier. Helena replies that it's completely fine, as she can clearly see the reason why. Glaring at our boy, the Cardinal turns around and asks them to enter the meeting room. They agree, but Cecilia, standing next to Mirror, gets her attention and says she thinks this won't be just a meeting, but an execution trial. And if she doesn't have a good reason, that guy is going to die by her hands today. After Cecilia leaves, Lucia calls out to Mirror so they can go in together. Mirror just stares at the girl, thinking to herself that she needs to stay focused, because if anything goes wrong, both Kim Soohyuk and Coco are going to die right there. Once inside, Helena announces that they are going to begin the bishop's meeting. She mentions that it's been a while, and hopes everyone has been doing well. At that moment, Cecilia raises her hand and asks if she can interrupt for a second. Helena asks what's on her mind. Cecilia apologizes, but says she needs to ask why a filthy vampire is present in this sacred place. Mirror realizes she went straight to the point. Helena replies that she is sure everyone was surprised by the agenda. This matter is the main concern for everyone present. They were all informed beforehand, and she would like to hear each of their opinions. Cecilia, burning with anger, questions what she means by allowing a vampire into the Vatican, stating that it is absolutely unacceptable. Another bishop comments that he can't trust him, since vampires easily lose control to anger and desire. The little girl, with a sad voice, also says she isn't so sure about this. They then ask Lucia, since they heard she had talked to him. Lucia confirms that she did. She explains that the first time she spoke with him was when Anna's squad leader attacked the hotel. At that time, Kim Soohyuk risked his own life to defend the base, and even helped their allied members. And since they hadn't received any intel about him, they ended up attacking him. But, even though he had the power to fight back, he never raised a hand against them. Dominic looks pretty surprised, admitting he wasn't expecting that. Lucia adds that on top of all that, Soohyuk is strictly under Bishop Mirror's control. She says it makes sense, since the two of them are together, except she starts thinking about some weird stuff, and her nose starts bleeding once again, wrapping up her testimony just like that. Now it's Mirror's turn. She states that she believes in Kim Soohyuk, but they ask why she thinks he is necessary for the Vatican. Mirror replies that it's because she saw his revelation. Cecilia starts laughing, saying she was wondering what Mirror would do to defend him, but that she is deeply disappointed. Revelations show two things: the birth of a chosen one, and a warning of an imminent threat. Cecilia argues that this revelation clearly means they need to kill him, especially if they ruthlessly murder their own comrades. But Soohyuk speaks up, saying that they were the ones who attacked him and his team first. Cecilia, furious, tells him to shut his mouth, saying that trash like him doesn't have the right to speak. Our boy glares back at her with pure rage. Meanwhile, in another location, Coco slowly opens her eyes. She wonders what day it is, because she is starving. And since she's so hungry, she mutters that she wants to drink blood. Back at the meeting, Mirror argues that, in reality, Soohyuk was the one who was betrayed, and that the agents' lives would have continued to be sacrificed anyway. But Cecilia, completely enraged, says whatever, because he is still a vampire, and the will passed down to them is clear: to exterminate their entire race. Mirror agrees that she is right, but to exterminate the vampires, they need to deal with Anna and her subordinates first. Mirror asks everyone there who would actually be capable of making them come out of hiding on their own. The Vatican was established by Santo Peter, with over 2,000 years of history, and thanks to the dedication and sacrifice of its members, only Anna remains out of all the ancestral vampires. However, Anna cunningly hides in the shadows, expanding her power while running away from them. But suddenly, the ones who were hiding have started to show themselves, and it's all thanks to the appearance of Kim Soohyuk. Since his arrival, the 7th squad leader was wiped out, and the 6th squad leader has joined them. Things that were completely stagnant have now started moving at a rapid pace. They now have the opportunity to finally end this war that has lasted for over 2,000 years, right here in their generation. Cecilia fires back, asking what she is talking about, calling it all absolute nonsense. She questions what she means by the 6th leader joining them, claiming Mirror has completely lost her mind. Cecilia then asks the Cardinal to exile Mirror from her position and immediately execute the two vampires. But Helena says that Mirror's statement is bold and worth considering. Because of this man, Anna has shown her weakness for the very first time, and maybe this is a real opportunity. The Cardinal announces that she is authorizing the formation of an experimental unit. Cecilia asks what she means by that. Helena says she cannot ignore the legitimacy of the request. If more than half of the bishops agree, the unit will be implemented. However, those who support this decision will have to take full responsibility for it. Mirror says she understands. Cecilia Cecilia, trembling with rage, says she could maybe consider 100 times over that Kim Soo-hyuk is still acceptable, but Anna's former subordinate is completely unacceptable. Helena replies that she's heard the girl is a bit aggressive and uncontrollable. She wants to see her to judge for herself and orders them to bring the vampire in. But suddenly a man runs into the room, warning them that they have a huge problem. He apologizes for the interruption but says it's extremely urgent. Helena asks what is going on, and he says that the vampire known as Coco has just escaped. After he gives the warning, everyone is completely caught off guard. Cecilia, boiling with rage, asks what just happened. Meanwhile, Mirror states that capturing her is the priority, and since it's still daytime, the vampire couldn't have gotten very far. But Dominic warns that if she escapes the base, it'll be a complete disaster. The only places she could go would be right there, or straight to the orphanage, where there are several children. At the orphanage, a sleeping child opens the door because he needs to use the bathroom. Except, to his surprise, Coco is standing right in front of him. Back in the meeting room, Hilda tells Dominic to wait for a moment. Trembling with anger, she asks where the vampire went. Soo-hyuk just stares at the girl, wondering what the hell is going on, as the atmosphere around her has completely changed. Dominic begs her to calm down, assuring her that her siblings will be perfectly fine and that she needs to keep her emotions in check. But he quickly realizes it's already too late. Dominic stares at a magic circle forming right in front of him, knowing full well it's about to explode. He yells for everyone to watch out. From the center of that magic circle, a hand holding a gigantic sword bursts out. This completely shocks Lucia, who screams for Mirror. The bishop barely manages to block the attack from that massive sword, and they ask if she's okay. Mirror replies that she is, thanks to the cardinal stepping in. Lucia, looking worried, asks what happened to Mirror's bleeding arm. Cardinal Helena, taking control of the situation, orders Lucia to head to the orphanage first. She also instructs Bishop Dominic to look after Hilda, hoping that since he's someone she trusts, he might be able to calm her down. The rest of the group will head to the orphanage right after, including Mirror. Helena sternly warns that if the vampire causes any trouble, Mirror will be held fully responsible. The bishop simply replies that she understands. Meanwhile, Cecilia just glares at them before sprinting straight toward the orphanage. She thinks to herself that she knew this would happen. After all, that girl is a squad leader level vampire, and her true monstrous nature hasn't changed. She dreads the thought that something terrible might have already happened. Except, to her surprise, when she arrives at the location, she sees Lucia just standing there at the entrance. Cecilia wonders what the bishop is doing just standing around. She gets a sinking feeling in her gut, imagining that if Lucia is paralyzed like that, the children must all be dead. Cecilia rushes forward, demanding to know what the hell the vampire did. But to her absolute shock, she sees a little boy riding piggyback right on Coco. The little boy looks at Cecilia and innocently asks if she wants to come in and play with them too. Cecilia is left completely speechless, wondering what the hell she is looking at and if this girl is actually a ruthless squad leader. At that moment, Mirror steps forward and asks what Coco is doing there and what happened to the children. But right then, Coco notices Mirror's bleeding arm. The vampire jumps in front of her, begging for just one tiny sip of her blood. But Mirror flat out denies the request. Cecilia, consumed by rage, snaps that this was obvious and that vampires always act exactly like this, begging for blood. She declares that she's going to eliminate the creature right here and now. Coco, looking confused, asks what she means by that, arguing that Soo-hyuk specifically told her not to drink the blood of others. This takes everyone by surprise. Cecilia wonders if the vampire is actually under control, noticing that she calls the boy master. Dominic quickly steps in, reminding them that there are children watching and asking Cecilia to power down. Hilda rushes over to the children, asking if everyone is okay. The kids call her Sister Hilda, and she tells them she is so happy that everyone is safe. The boys excitedly explain that that sister played with them and that it was a lot of fun. Hilda asks which sister they are talking about. They point right at Coco, who is still talking to Mirror, and say it was that sister with the red eyes. They explain that she let them ride on her back and that they had a blast playing together. This completely catches Hilda off guard, leaving her relieved and a bit happy about the whole situation. She goes up to Mirror and hugs her, apologizing for hurting her earlier. Mirror reassures her, saying Hilda was just worried about her siblings and that it's no problem at all since it wasn't intentional. Hilda then turns to Coco and genuinely thanks the vampire. But Coco, having zero filter, just replies that she only wanted a sip of her blood. Quickly, Soo-hyuk punches the vampire right in the head, telling her to shut her mouth. Back at the meeting, Helena declares that it has been officially proven that these two vampires can be controlled. With the majority of the bishops in agreement, they will proceed with the operation of the experimental unit, which now officially includes vampires. The cardinal asks if anyone has any objections. Cecilia, visibly frustrated, replies that she has none. Helena says very well and announces that with this decision, Bishop Mirror will be appointed as the leader of the newly formed Mirror Squad, alongside Kim Soo-hyuk and the vampire Coco. All of this happens while Coco continues in the background, still begging Mirror for a taste of her blood. After the meeting wraps up, that girl and the bishop head out. She waves goodbye to Mirror. On the other side, the blonde girl turns to her sister Mirror and reminds her that, since she's still injured, she shouldn't push herself too hard. Mira agrees. Lucia then asks her to let her know right away if those guys try anything funny, promising she'll rush over to teach them a lesson, and warns her once more to stay safe. Right behind them, however, Cecilia shows up looking for Mira. As Lucia turns around, Mira asks her what she wants. In a dead serious tone, Cecilia states that the true mission of their crusade is to protect humanity from vampires. She makes it clear that if this scum ever violates that noble cause, she won't hesitate to slaughter them all to fulfill her duty. Without wasting another second, Cecilia walks away, warning them to stay sharp. Meanwhile, over in Russia, in the city of Vladivostok, the scene cuts to the inside of a bar. A well-dressed man approaches an older gentleman, remarking that it's been quite a while since their last encounter. He addresses him as Ivan and mentions that he needs his help. The old man scoffs, replying that he only ever reaches out in situations like this, which is honestly a bit disappointing. Regardless, he asks if he hasn't forgotten who was responsible for tearing his eye out in the first place. That man is Ivan, the boss of the Russian mafia. He declares that he will never forget the day he lost both his leader and his eye to him, questioning the sheer audacity of showing his face around there and calling him Kim Soo-hyuk. Our protagonist simply stares back in silence as the old man demands to know the real reason he came all the way to Russia. Kim Soo-hyuk flashes back to the previous briefing, where the bishop explained that the Yakuza faction recently raided the hotel, showing clear signs of vampire activity. An autopsy was carried out, and contrary to expectations, it confirmed they were entirely human. However, there was one bizarre detail. Drugs detected in their systems were directly linked to those superhuman abilities. A month prior, the Russian branch had been wiped out by the mafia, and the exact same substance was found inside the bodies of the mobsters back then. With the Yakuza's movements in Russia now tracked down, an urgent investigation into Anna Nanayama and this new drug became critical. With a secured safe house, they were ordered to launch the mission immediately. Back at the Allied Crusade Hotel in the Vladivostok branch, Mira and Coco are waiting in the room. When our guy walks in, Mira is surprised and asks what happened, having assumed he'd return in total chaos after causing a massive scene, but he looks completely fine. Kim Soo-hyuk announces that he secured the coordinates to the hideout where the Yakuza deals take place, and that he has already mapped out the entire operation. He gets ready to lay out the plan. Mira comments on how crazy it is that he managed to extract that info so effortlessly, despite having taken the man's eye in the past. Our guy counters by asking if that wasn't exactly what she wanted him to do, pointing out that the Yakuza and Ivan are bitter rivals. Listening closely to the infiltration plan, she acknowledges his efficiency, noting that this is precisely what's expected from an elite special agent. Fired up, she gets ready to roll and asks what her part in the plan is. Kim Soo-hyuk explains to the bishop that this disguise is absolutely essential for the squad, especially since it's made up of disguised vampires. He playfully questions if she genuinely thought she could keep her priest robes and carry a massive greatsword into a nightclub, stressing that given her current injuries, this disguise is by far their best bet. Mira reluctantly accepts wearing the contact lenses and wig, but complains about the outfit, asking if there wasn't a better option. As soon as she steps toward the entrance, the bouncer immediately blocks the way, coldly stating that her companion's attire violates the club's dress code. Through the comms, Mira urgently asks Kim Soo-hyuk what they should do. The protagonist radios Coco directly and tells her to handle the situation immediately. Without missing a beat, Coco unzips her jacket, showing off some cleavage. The bouncer stands there completely stunned, and right after, waves them both through, leaving Mira utterly speechless. Over the radio, Kim Soo-hyuk confirms they've cleared the first hurdle and expects everyone to carry out their objective. The operation is officially underway. Once inside the club, Mira looks around in utter disbelief, wondering if this chaotic place is truly what a party looks like, and asking herself if everyone around is just a corrupt degenerate. Completely out of her element, she wonders how on earth she is supposed to blend in. Suddenly, someone taps her shoulder, greeting her with a smooth hello and calling her gorgeous. Mira is confused, trying to process if that was English. The blonde guy gets straight to the point, mentioning they have a private room nearby and asking if she's down. Embarrassed and completely taken aback by the proposition, she tries to back off, but the guy firmly grabs her arm, insisting they leave together. Mira instantly snaps back, demanding that he take his hands off her. Meanwhile, in another section of the facility, our protagonist notes that there shouldn't have been any need to deploy so many security forces, yet he can't spot a single soul anywhere. The entire place is dead silent and completely deserted all the way to the deepest part of the hideout. However, caught off guard, figures emerge right behind him. Turning around, everything clicks. Dozens of heavily armed men surround him, their eyes glowing blood red. Our guy calmly remarks that this was a setup all along. Stepping out from behind his henchman, Ivan reveals himself, stating that he has waited a very long time for this moment. He reveals that Lady Katerina made him a very tempting offer. If he delivers Kim Soo-hyuk straight to her, he gets full control over this entire territory. Ivan warns him to surrender quietly, adding that all of his men are loaded with silver ammunition. He sneers, telling him not to worry about his little girlfriend either, since her drink has already been spiked. In fact, Mira is shown completely passed out as the man closes in on her, and even Coco looks out of it, dancing completely alone on the floor. Ivan declares that the kid kid is completely done for. He slowly takes off his hat and asks with pure vengeance if they didn't still have some unfinished business to settle, his remaining eye glowing a menacing deep red. The scene shifts back to a few hours earlier, with Kim Soo-hyuk laying out his strategy to Mirror. He details how the plan makes it seem as though they've walked straight into a trap set by the enemy at that location. The real goal is to make the adversaries believe they've completely outsmarted them, prompting them to approach with total confidence, ready to gloat and declare that it's all over. Back in the present, after confirming the situation, our protagonist sarcastically thanks Ivan for following the plan down to the finest detail. Completely baffled, the mafia boss asks what on earth he means by that. Kim Soo-hyuk explains that the moment he was assigned to the mission to eliminate Ananayama, he thoroughly investigated their operational pattern. When distributing their products, they never genuinely collaborate with local factions. Instead, they simply swallow them whole and seize full control. Since those exact drugs were circulating directly throughout Ivan's territory, the entire setup became blatantly obvious. The old mobster is stunned, realizing the kid already saw through everything, from his own organization being absorbed by the Yakuza faction all the way to every detail of that ambush. Even so, Ivan snaps back, claiming that none of that changes a thing, and that the kid is now completely cornered, barking orders at his men to turn him into dust. Right away, the shooters open fire, unleashing a relentless barrage of gunfire on our guy. Without a single second of hesitation, Kim Soo-hyuk sprints head-on straight toward them. Ivan watches in disbelief, questioning if the boy truly has the suicidal nerve to charge directly into full rounds loaded with silver ammunition, knowing damn well that a single direct hit would be fatal. The bullets rip through the air at high speed, but using the new skill he recently acquired, our protagonist deflects every single round with absolute precision. Ivan can hardly believe his own eyes, completely speechless seeing the kid parry high-velocity gunfire, using nothing more than a simple combat knife, while Kim Soo-hyuk suddenly appears right in front of the gunman. Meanwhile, back on the club's dance floor, Coco keeps dancing until an alert comes through her comms. She picks up, asking what the situation is. Kim Soo-hyuk radios in that it's time to make her move, ordering her to track the scent of Mirror's blood. Ready to go, Coco confirms, tears off her disguise, and immediately vaults out of the venue. Back at the main standoff, the old mafioso tries to hold his ground, claiming the protagonist made a grave mistake trying to figure out why they were kidnapping that woman. He mocks the fact that Kim Soo-hyuk sent a female comrade straight into the heart of enemy territory, calling him an utter fool. Ivan scoffs, stating that by now his little girlfriend must be completely knocked out and utterly helpless in the hands of his men. However, right in the middle of his gloating, Ivan takes a sudden bullet directly to his shoulder. Kim Soo-hyuk calmly asks if he forgot who he's dealing with, warning him that this is hardly the time to be worrying about others, fully confident that there is zero reason to fear for Mirror's safety. Far from there, the guy attempting to haul Mirror away remarks on how attractive she is and reaches out to lay a hand on her. In that exact split second, Mirror firmly grabs his wrist. The blonde guy's eyes go wide in total shock as she ruthlessly twists his arm until his bones snap, sending him screaming in agony. The thug next to him tries to react, only to catch a brutal kick straight to the face, sending him crashing violently into the car. Armed henchmen pile out of the vehicles, yelling that they walked into an ambush, and cursing out the girl's audacity. Infuriated by their brazen attitude, Mirror channels raw energy into her leg, her foot glowing with blinding power, and unleashes a devastating kick into the car, blasting all of them away in one single strike. She flashes back to the plan Kim Soo-hyuk mapped out. He had warned her that those scumbags would resort to dirty tricks to drug her and knock her out. The plan was to play along and pretend she had fallen for the trap so they would transport her directly to the organization's true negotiation site, at which point Coco would track her scent for the breach. Mirror had skeptically asked how he could be so sure the men would approach her in the first place, to which the kid replied that this was precisely why she had to wear that revealing outfit as bait. Still annoyed, recalling that Mirror notices her injured arm has started bleeding again from the strain. She remembers Kim Soo-hyuk's words telling her not to overdo it because of her wounds and simply wait for backup. The original plan was to hang back and wait for support, but she clearly overheard the men mentioning that this would be the final shipment of victims. Mirror realizes that there are countless other innocent people captured before her, enduring unimaginable horrors at this very moment. She mentally apologizes to Kim Soo-hyuk, recalling Cecilia's stern words, "Their true crusade is to save humanity from vampires." Resolute, Mirror decides that even if a living hell awaits below, it is her sworn duty as a member of the Vatican to step in and save those people. Heading straight toward a hidden blast door, she tries to understand why they keep abducting so many people. Many vehicles had pulled out of the nightclub, but only a fraction were parked here, which clearly means there are several other abduction facilities scattered around. Stepping inside, she is met with a grotesque sight, a surgical ward lined with rows of holding cells, yet completely empty. Unable to comprehend what's going on, she notices a vial shattered on the ground with the word blood stamped on the label. Suddenly, a mysterious woman's voice echoes right behind Mirror, noting in an amused tone how truly fascinating it is that someone managed to get this far, seeing as all the human women were supposed to be locked inside coffins by now. Mirror snaps around on high alert, demanding to know who she is. Mirror instantly realizes that the woman appeared right behind her without making a single sound, leaving no doubt that she is the leader of the Yakuza faction. Katerina asks once more who she is. The bishop reflects that charging at an enemy leader while unarmed and injured is far from ideal, but even if her life comes to an end right here, she must carry out her duty until her very last breath. Resolute, she turns around, pulls off her wig disguise, and proudly announces herself as Mirror, Bishop of the Vatican's Special Task Force. Katerina scoffs, remarking that she must be the one pulling Kim Soo-hyuk's strings. Knowing full well the immense danger ahead, Mirror thinks to herself that if she falls here, Kim Soo-hyuk will take care of the rest, charging straight into the confrontation. Outside the facility, Coco picks up Mirror's scent and confirms she has found the spot. Our protagonist deduces that this is indeed their true base of operations. He plans to regroup with Mirror to push forward with the operation, but Coco suddenly hesitates to step any further. Kim Soo-hyuk asks if she lost her blood scent, but Coco explains that it's the exact opposite. An overwhelming stench of blood is pouring from behind that door. Caught off guard, our guy notices Mirror's dropped comm device on the floor, which has a hastily recorded voice message on it. In the recording, Mirror apologizes for deviating from the plan, explaining that innocent hostages are inside and she simply couldn't stand by and do nothing. She reminds him that the core mission of their special task force is to protect humanity from vampires, placing the lives of civilians above any individual or the organization itself. She closes by saying she trusts him completely as her partner to finish the mission without fail. Kim Soo-hyuk declares they need to pick up the pace and find Mirror immediately, but Coco desperately grabs him. Trembling in terror, she reveals that the scent in the air is identical to the presence of red. Our guy asks what red means, and Coco frantically explains that it belongs to an executive squad leader tier vampire, sensing at least 2 high-ranking presences nearby. Seeing Coco having a full-blown panic attack and trembling with anxiety, Kim Soo-hyuk kicks the door open, stating there's no time to lose since Mirror is in grave danger. Stepping down the dark corridor, he immediately notices something off. The initial sector of the facility shows 0 signs of recent activity. Paralyzed by fear, Coco begs him to turn back, but Kim Soo-hyuk urges her to hang in there just a bit longer, determined to rescue the abductees and save Mirror. Suddenly, his eyes lock onto blood splattered across the ground, leading into a long trail where someone was dragged without showing any signs of struggle. Clear proof that the victims were heavily drugged. He urges Coco to help locate the hostages, but in complete shock, Coco whispers that the trail of blood belongs to Mirror herself. Our protagonist is stunned, realizing that the bishop has been defeated and captured. Both of them sprint down the hallway following the Crimson Trail. Kim Soo-hyuk beats himself up for letting her face an enemy leader alone, recalling that he specifically told her not to push herself because of her prior injuries. He kicks open the main chamber with his weapon drawn, screaming Mirror's name, but freezes in sheer horror at the sight before him. Countless human women suspended inside fluid-filled containment pods. Disgusted by the human experimentation unfolding right in front of him, he tries to wrap his head around what kind of twisted setup this is. Coco adds with dread that the captives are being forced to ingest experimental drugs, painfully recalling how much she and Ayaka used to despise taking those same substances. Kim Soo-hyuk realizes that this facility is ground zero for testing these narcotics on kidnapped humans. If they can rescue everyone and secure the evidence, they can expose the entire operation, but his immediate priority is finding Mirror. As he takes a step forward, a mocking voice asks if he's looking for her. Katerina steps into view, holding an unconscious Mirror captive. Kim Soo-hyuk demands to know what she did to her. Katerina tells him to chill out, claiming she has no intention of killing her just yet, as she plans to claim Mirror's vessel once the subject is fully prepared for assimilation. Our protagonist snaps, telling her to cut the crap, but right beside him, one of the captive women desperately bangs against the glass of her pod. Smirking, Katerina remarks that they are bound to meet again anyway, and playfully suggests he try saving those innocent lives instead of chasing after her. She warns him that the base's location has been compromised and the cleanup squad is already en route. Having gathered everything she needed, she prepares to withdraw and triggers the facility's self-destruct sequence to blow the place sky high. Bidding a sarcastic farewell to Kim Soo-hyuk, Katerina vanishes with Mirror. Kim Soo-hyuk yells at Coco to snap out of it while facing a brutal dilemma. If he runs after Katerina right now, he might be able to catch up and rescue Mirror. But if he does, every single one of those trapped women will inevitably die in the explosion. Hearing Mirror's final words echo in his mind, begging him to put the lives of innocents first, and reaffirming her trust in him, our protagonist lets out a furious roar and makes his choice. He begins frantically smashing the glass pods to pull the hostages out. Just as he moves to break them free, the entire underground facility erupts into a violent chain of massive explosions. Just seconds before the blast, our protagonist sprints desperately toward the exit, counting down every single second until the final impact. The moment the timer hits 0, the entire facility erupts in flames. Outside, Kim Soo-hyuk emerges covered in blood and battered by injuries, silently whispering an apology to Mirror. He can't shake the terrifying memory of the bishop being taken hostage by Katerina. He laments bitterly that they were so close, yet failed to save practically anyone, except for one single woman found alive among the test subjects inside that lab. However, that sole survivor had just been turned into a vampire. As soon as she regains consciousness, the woman thanks him for pulling her out. But overcome by despair and drowning in tears, she begs Kim Soo-hyuk to end her life right then and there. She reveals that she was a nun devoted to serving God, but now feels that both her body and soul have been utterly defiled. If surviving means having to drink human blood, she would rather die, begging on her knees to be put down. Kim Soo-hyuk firmly rejects her plea. He explains that the true mission of their order is to protect humanity from vampires, and they never execute innocent victims. Taking his answer to heart, the nun grabs a sharp glass shard from the ground and decides to end things herself, aiming the makeshift blade straight at her own throat. Without a second thought, Kim Soo-hyuk steps in and stops her hand. He speaks with deep empathy, explaining that he understands the sheer shock of turning into a vampire overnight, having endured that exact same agony and despair himself. He shares that he was pulled from the brink when an order member reached out, giving him a renewed reason to live and fight. He reminds her that Mira put everything on the line to prioritize saving those victims before her own life, and the life she fought to the absolute limit to protect was hers. The protagonist assures her that she will also discover her own purpose to carry on, pleading with her not to give up. Overcome with emotion, the nun breaks down in tears and embraces him tightly. Comforting her, Kim Soo-hyuk reflects that they managed to save at least one soul, holding on to hope that Mira will also find a way to survive wherever she is. Meanwhile, the scene flashes back to a few hours earlier, showing an impatient Katarina. She questions why they are keeping Mira alive instead of killing her outright, suggesting they finish the job immediately to lure out and capture Kim Soo-hyuk much more easily. However, a mysterious hooded girl tells Katarina to shut her mouth and follow the plan to the letter. She mocks the 5th squad leader, pointing out that unlike her, she actually uses her brain instead of acting like a reckless woman driven solely by her obsession with men. Enraged by the insult, Katarina warns her never to underestimate her again, and lashes out with her snakes. Effortlessly, the hooded girl snatches one of the serpents and crushes its head barehanded, coldly ordering her to stay quiet while she's speaking. Her pride wounded, Katarina unleashes all of her venomous snakes at once. The hooded girl scoffs, stating that Katarina grew arrogant after tasting a bit of blood and went soft over time. She warns that if it weren't for Anna Nanayama's direct orders, she would have slaughtered her right on the spot. Katarina sneers as one of her vipers sinks its fangs into her rival's leg, claiming that's great news since she never received any orders to spare anyone. Confident in her snake ambush, Katarina declares that anyone who crosses her path meets a lethal end. Yet in a split second, the hooded girl vanishes and rematerializes right behind Katarina, whispering that the trick on her arm is nothing more than a cheap accessory. Stunned by her opponent's terrifying speed, Katarina tries to react, only to be cut off by pure chilling fury. The young woman demands to know how a mere leader of the 5th squad dares to look down on her, revealing her true identity, Lily, the feared leader of the 3rd squad of the Yakuza faction. Katarina realizes in sheer terror that Lily operates on a completely higher plane of power, having reached an advanced vampire stage. Knowing that Kim Soo-hyuk was promised as her prize, Katarina swallows her pride and agrees to play along for now. She then asks Lily what the real motive is behind keeping Mira alive. Lily replies with a sinister smirk, "When trying to wipe out a pest infestation, you don't act on impulse by swatting stray targets. To annihilate the entire colony, the strike must be driven straight into the heart of the nest." At that very moment, the scene cuts back to the newly rescued nun exposing her true allegiance, drawing a concealed weapon and aiming it straight at Kim Soo-hyuk's back. That man tells Kim Soo-hyuk that this is a direct message from Lady Katarina, catching all three of them completely off guard. He warns that the woman was taken to a private hideout known only to Katarina, ordering him to show up there alone tonight. If he fails to come by himself, Mira will be killed without a second thought. After aiming his weapon and stating that the message has been delivered and she will be waiting, the henchman points the gun at his own head and pulls the trigger, ending his life right in front of everyone. Kim Soo-hyuk immediately grasps the strategy. The man destroyed any potential evidence before he could be interrogated. On top of that, the enemy already knows their exact location, leaving the group with no other choice but to play by their demands. Coco quickly alerts Kim Soo-hyuk that the subordinate sent by Katarina reeks of Mira's scent. Our protagonist deduces that they must have used that very same agent to move and hide the bishop in another location. He asks if she can track her down, and Coco confirms that she can follow her trail through her sense of smell. Kim Soo-hyuk lays out the operation. He will confront Katarina head-on to draw all the attention so they can rescue Mira, instructing Coco to close in quietly. However, Coco pushes back, insisting that she should be the one to attack Katarina, as that woman was the one who killed Ayaka. Kim Soo-hyuk calms Coco down, explaining that while he understands her burning desire for revenge, without Mira's presence and authority, the Vatican's task force will waste no time trying to hunt them down. He emphasizes that just as Ayaka meant everything to her, both Coco and Mira are now irreplaceable to him. He asks once more if she can focus on saving Mira, and Coco finally agrees to the mission. Before heading out, she makes it clear with conviction that she will be the one to finish off that woman. Next, our guy instructs the group to investigate the identity of the member who made contact with the captive earlier and pass all the intel over to Coco while he rushes off to save Mira. He clarifies that it will be up to Mira to decide what to do with the newly turned vampire none once this is all over, ordering them to keep a close watch on her at that location for now. The woman nods and stays put. Kim Soo-hyuk considers that Coco naturally wants to charge at the monster who took her dearest friend's life. Because of that, he needs to move with extreme speed. He wants to ensure the target is neutralized while keeping Katerina alive to get the answers they need. Later that night, at an isolated church, our protagonist kicks the front doors wide open. Katerina welcomes him with a mocking smile, remarking that he actually showed up, though he's running late for his own wedding. She is dressed in a full bridal gown, surrounded by armed vampire guards lined along the pews like guests attending a ceremony. She teasingly asks how her groom could leave her waiting at the altar. Disgusted by the twisted joke, Kim Soo-hyuk snaps at her to shut her mouth and unleashes pure fury on the guards. A henchman tries to blindside him from behind with a knife, but the protagonist swiftly dodges and delivers a devastating counterpunch straight to the face, driving him into the floor. Multiple gunmen open fire all at once, but Kim Soo-hyuk kicks a wooden pew, knocking the shooter off balance before putting a clean bullet straight through his head. Using the fallen guard's body as a meat shield, he presses forward, taking down several enemies around the hall. In the middle of the shootout, his ammunition runs dry. The last standing guard tries to land a shot but misses by an inch. In a fraction of a second, Kim Soo-hyuk grabs him by the throat, slices his neck, grabs the knife from his hands, and ruthlessly plunges it into the skull of the next gunman. With the floor covered in defeated henchmen, he coldly states that the playtime is over. Pointing his weapon straight at Katerina, Kim Soo-hyuk demands to know where Mirror is. Katerina chuckles with a sadistic grin, remarking on how intense he is, and telling him to calm down. She explains that she didn't bring him here just for a fight, warning him with a bizarre, unsettling look that if he kills her right now, Mirror will die along with her. Katerina reflects on her past, recalling that back when she was still human, the sole reason for her existence was pursuing relationships with men. Feeling the warmth of someone else's body and listening to their heartbeat was all that mattered to her, as that was the only time she ever felt truly alive. She would have gladly surrendered her very soul, without hesitation, just to keep living that way forever. Out of nowhere, however, she found herself covered in blood before a mysterious woman who offered her immortality. Staring straight at Katerina, Anna Nenayama made it clear that she would only grant that gift if she proved strong enough to survive the transformation. That was how Katerina was turned into a vampire, gaining eternal life. Yet, even after achieving immortality, she could never find genuine satisfaction. In fits of blind rage, she would rip the hearts out of her victims and drain their blood to the very last drop, letting out horrifying, unhinged laughter. But the moment the frenzy passed and she returned to her senses, she would fall right back into that same suffocating void, lamenting that she had ended up killing yet another person. It was never what she truly wanted, as she could no longer feel life pulsing inside her like before. She realized that the only thing capable of filling that emptiness would be another true vampire. Even though the genetic and human experiments weren't making much progress, she refused to give up hope. Suddenly, a subordinate knocked on her door calling out for Lady Katerina with urgent news. They had finally located the legendary male vampire. Hearing about Kim Soo-hyuk, she became completely fascinated, wondering what kind of man he was. Being a fully realized vampire, he would undoubtedly be able to satisfy her. She only hoped that his face would be her type, and much to her delight, she found the exact handsome features she had longed for. Back at the church confrontation, Katerina tells Kim Soo-hyuk that eternal life is nothing more than unending boredom. She suggests he drop his useless revenge and stay by her side forever. She promises she'll take the lead in everything and playfully tells him not to be shy. Kim Soo-hyuk bluntly rejects her offer with total disgust, stating that a woman well over 100 years old is way too much for his taste. Irritated by his nerve, Katerina snaps back, stating that she intended to make him her husband out of pure courtesy, but now she'll just keep him as her permanent plaything by force. Meanwhile, in another facility connected to the hotel, several heavily armed henchmen secure the perimeter. They repeat that they've received direct orders from Lady Katerina to lock down that hallway and prevent anyone from getting through, especially any agents dispatched by the Vatican. Suddenly, Coco appears at the end of the corridor. The guards are caught off guard, asking if she's one of the Vatican's dogs, but she couldn't care less about what they're saying. Underestimating the lone intruder, the thugs start mocking her. But taking another step forward, Coco catches Mirror's unmistakable scent and confirms her comrade is right there. The men draw their weapons and open fire, but in a fraction of a second, Coco dashes forward with superhuman speed, tearing open the throats of the first shooters and commanding them to get out of her way. 3 more armed men jump in front of her. With a massive leap, she dodges the hail of bullets and cleanly decapitates another guard in a single strike. She kicks open the laboratory door at the end of the hall. Inside, a panicked scientist shouts to protect the subject at all costs, emphasizing that it is an invaluable specimen. Coco brushes off their panic and announces that she has finally found Mirror lying on the examination table. The doctor tries to yell at her to get out, but Coco lands a brutal punch straight to his jaw, knocking him out cold on the spot. Coco scoops Mirror up into her arms and glares down at the remaining researchers, who stand there trembling in sheer terror without making a move. Carrying the bishop, Coco tells her they have to leave immediately, grumbling that she only came to rescue her because Kim Soo-hyuk insisted, since her real goal was to hunt down and slaughter Katerina. However, as she takes her first steps toward the exit, a shadowy figure blocks the doorway. The young woman speaks with a sadistic tone, remarking that it's been a while and asking if Coco still remembers her. Unable to place her right away, Coco raises her guard. Staring directly at Mirror, the hooded girl asks with a psychopathic grin what Coco thinks she's trying to take, coldly warning her that when someone tries to steal what belongs to others, they should at least have the manners to ask for permission first. Now the scene cuts back to our boy, already shooting at Katarina's snakes. He thinks to himself, just like that time, she's planning to drag out the fight until he gets exhausted, and if it keeps going like this, he'll only wear himself out. Once again, he fires at those snakes. Meanwhile, with a smirk on her face, she thinks he looks completely desperate, which is great news for her. With the poisonous mist rising and the serpents closing in on him, his body must already be at its absolute limit. This is precisely the perfect moment to hunt. She suddenly appears right behind his back, telling him to spare his efforts since he already belongs to her. Our boy snaps back, saying she's going to pay for this. Caught off guard and wondering what he means, she is surprised as he charges right at her. Slashing through the snakes along the way, he gets right in front of Katarina and swings for her neck. She quickly steps back in shock, asking herself what kind of guy this is. She was completely certain about his broken mental state, but it seems she made a huge miscalculation. Our protagonist lunges at her once more, declaring that it's over. However, puffing out her cheeks, she blows a blast of poisonous gas directly at him. With her face bleeding from a cut, she gets completely furious, realizing this insolent bastard has been playing with her the entire time. Those random gunshots were just to disperse the poison clouds, and acting confused was merely an act to create an opening. The whole thing was a calculated trap. Ever since that fight at the hotel, he had already figured out her entire strategy. He demands that she surrender, as she has nowhere left to run. Katarina loses her temper, calling him a piece of trash and questioning how he dared to leave a scar on her face. To make matters worse, that wound won't heal. Swearing she won't show him any more mercy, she calls out his name as the snakes tighten the circle. The boy notices the snakes gathering toward him and realizes the truth. All these serpents are meant to collect and drain blood. He doesn't have much time before she absorbs it all. But just as he tries to charge at her, a snake swiftly bites into his arm. Katarina declares that it all ends now. She says she will tear off every single one of his limbs if necessary, keeping him just alive enough so she can torture him. Meanwhile, more snakes surround him from behind, biting and choking his neck. She mocks him, saying it's way too early for him to start suffering since they haven't even properly begun. Without hesitation, she brutally rips his arm off. The boy lets out an agonizing scream of pain. Panicking, he realizes he can't move his body at all. Katarina starts tossing him around violently, slamming him hard against the wall. Staring right back at her, he forces himself to hold on. If he falls here, he won't just fail to avenge his fallen comrades, he won't ever be able to reach her either. He simply cannot stop now. At that exact moment, she plunges something deep into his chest. With his senses fading, he can no longer hear anything, and begins to doubt himself, wondering if maybe he just wasn't strong enough. In his thoughts, he apologizes to Coco, and also asks for Mirror's forgiveness. Katarina taunts him, asking if he sees it now, saying he should have listened to her when she was being gentle and considerate. But she tells him not to worry, because she isn't going to let him die just yet, even though her facial scar hasn't healed. She celebrates that she finally captured Kim Soo-hyuk. The sun is about to rise, and she needs to head back and enjoy her meal. Looking at him again, she's surprised to see he is still conscious. That's exactly what she wanted. Prey strong enough to satisfy her twisted desires. The boy begins to let out a low growl of pure hatred. She gets unsettled, wondering why on earth he's still doing that. Filled with burning rage, our protagonist just glares directly into her eyes, leaving her deeply unnerved, unable to comprehend how anyone in that condition could still possess such an intimidating gaze. Driven by uncontrollable rage, our boy completely regenerates his severed arm. Katarina is left in absolute shock, unable to comprehend what she just witnessed. At that exact moment, his speed far surpassed hers by a massive margin. That means he is now overwhelmingly stronger than her. This guy is a total monster, a bitter reality she refuses to accept. Without giving her any time to react, our protagonist rushes in and brutally tears her arm right off. Katarina panics in pure disbelief, unable to even track his attack. Right after, he lands a devastating blow straight to her ribs, sending her flying backward through the air. Crashing down, she thinks to herself that it's simply impossible for someone to become this powerful in just a few months. To her, he is just incredibly lucky. If she had been blessed with an ability as great as that, she would have awakened her true potential a long time ago. Suddenly, a giant serpent appears, ready to strike and devour him. But with a single crushing punch, the boy obliterates the snake's head completely. Katarina can hardly believe he is able to handle her secret technique with such effortless ease. Screaming in pure fury, the protagonist charges at her once again. Realizing there is no way she can win in a direct clash, she immediately unleashes a cloud of poisonous gas toward him. Her top priority right now is to put some distance between them and get away. However, he moves too fast, grabbing her by the ankle and violently slamming her down onto the ground. Exhausted and beaten, she can only stare up at our boy towering over her. She is forced to admit it. He is ridiculously strong, and she is still a tier below him, even though he's only a newly turned vampire. Just as he prepares to finish her off, Katarina grabs that metal rod from earlier and yells at him not to mess with her, driving it deep right into his eye. She snarls that no matter how strong he has become, a wound like that is still fatal. Yet, to her sheer horror, he glares back at her with burning hatred, completely alive and unfazed. Without hesitation, he plunges his hand straight into her stomach. Katarina is struck with sheer dread, certain that he is a true monster, as he begins to brutally tear her body apart. She realizes all too clearly that she cannot win against him. In that moment of pure agony, a memory from her past resurfaces. She remembers being completely stunned when facing a girl who introduced herself as Lily, the new leader of the third squad. Back then, Lily had politely asked her to look out for her from that point on. Katarina demanded to know who she thought she was, introducing herself as the leader of the third squad, and questioned whether she truly possessed those special eyes. The girl, confused, asked what she meant by those eyes and wondered if Katarina hadn't awakened yet. Enraged by the remark, Katarina punched the newcomer, telling her not to get arrogant as a rookie. The girl tried to explain that she was just speaking her mind, but Katarina furiously asked who she was to put herself on equal footing with a squad leader. She threw her to the ground and struck her again, making it clear that power is the only order and the weak don't deserve to live. Looking into Lily's eyes back then, Katarina understood the harsh truth. No matter the situation, the strongest always wins. Back in the present, our boy continues screaming in rage, tearing into her body. Katarina yells back, calling him an insolent brat and shouting that he has no right to look down on her with those very same eyes. In a desperate final move, multiple snakes emerge, biting down hard on the boy and pinning him against the ground. Katarina declares that it has been a very long time since she last had to use this. She despises doing it because it completely ruins her appearance. But now that he has forced her to reveal it, he must die right here, because this is not something anyone is allowed to see and live to tell the tale. Gritting his teeth in pure rage, our boy charges straight at Katarina once more. Pushing her powers to the absolute limit, she declares that everything ends right there. Unleashing a blast of extremely acidic venom directly toward him, Katarina states that even if he can regenerate quickly, she will destroy him completely. In an instant, his arm is entirely dissolved, reduced down to bare skeletal bone. She mocks him, saying that the venom that melted his flesh will turn into gas and melt him down again and again, down to his very last cell. He deserves to die engulfed in sheer agony, as that is precisely what he deserves. Enveloped in that corrosive haze, the boy screams out in unbearable pain. Katarina gloats, saying that they are finally face to face at last. She asks if, even with the new abilities he gained, he truly believed he could defeat her, calling him completely pathetic. However, to her total shock, when she looks back, she sees our boy standing on his feet again, roaring with fury and lunging right at her with everything he has. Katarina panics, unable to comprehend what's happening, since his body should have been dissolved straight to the bone. His regeneration speed is far faster than the corrosive power of her venom. Meanwhile, on a nearby road, Coco is panicking inside a speeding car, pleading for Kim Soo-hyuk to hold on until she gets there. Boiling with anger, she swears that Katarina is as good as dead once she gets her hands on her. The driver urges her to be careful, telling her not to stick her head out of the window. In the back seat, Mira wakes up dazed, wondering what is happening to her head and how long she has been out. She can hardly remember a thing after encountering that woman underground. If what Coco said is true, Kim Soo-hyuk went to confront the squad leader all by himself and is in grave danger. Arriving at the scene, Coco jumps out of the car, while Mira warns her to stay alert and fall back for the moment. Coco storms into the church, asking if he has already finished off that wretched woman, but stops dead in her tracks. Mira immediately recognizes the lethal technique belonging to the leader of the 5th squad and warns that they shouldn't get any closer. Worst of all, neither of them can spot Kim Soo-hyuk amid the thick chaos. Deep inside that toxic mist, the deadly clash rages on. The boy screams for Katarina to die as she stares him down in that terrifying form of hers. Outside the mist, Coco begins shouting Kim Soo-hyuk's name at the top of her lungs. Katarina catches the commotion and notices their presence, baffled by how they managed to get there when Lily was supposed to be watching them. Cursing herself for letting her guard down for even a second, Katarina is caught off guard as Kim Soo-hyuk seizes the opening and lands a clean, heavy punch right across her face. Furious that she took another blow to the face, she calls him a wretched insect and tells him to drop dead once and for all, unleashing another wave of corrosive poison. Mira screams for Kim Soo-hyuk in despair, but Katarina tells her to shut up, warning that she is next on the list. Katarina decides not to waste time figuring out how they slip past Lily. She will simply eliminate everyone on the spot and worry about the details later. Channeling all her venom at maximum concentration to wipe them all out in one shot, she yells that this is the end for Kim Soo-hyuk, who is standing right in front of her. Yet, just moments before the venom can hit him, she is left speechless as he miraculously escapes. She realizes instantly that this was not Kim Soo-hyuk's ability, that power belongs to someone else entirely. Looking up, she spots someone staring down at her. It is the mysterious hooded girl. Katerina instantly realizes the grim truth. Lady Anna gave that girl direct permission to eliminate Katerina and her useless subordinates. Just as Lady Anna intended, Kim Soo-hyuk is growing at an incredible rate. Power is order, and the weak do not deserve to live. The hooded girl asks if Katerina understood what was just said and signals for her to pay close attention to her surroundings. By the time Katerina snaps back to reality, Kim Soo-hyuk is already right beside her, sinking his fangs viciously into her neck. And just like that, Katerina thinks to herself that, just like the others, she has been abandoned too. She refuses to accept having everything stripped away from her like this. In total desperation, she orders Kim Soo-hyuk to let her go and tries to bite him using her snake. However, she quickly realizes it's completely useless. Everything is draining out of her far too fast. She desperately asks herself if this is truly how she's going to die, when all she ever wanted was to live a happy life. She thinks back to Anna. If this was how it was going to end, why did she ever give her that blood in the first place? Katerina doesn't want to die yet. She is nowhere near ready for it. But without a hint of mercy, Kim Soo-hyuk simply slams her lifelessly against the ground. Mirror is left in utter shock, hardly able to believe that he took down a squad leader all by himself. Still, seeing him in that feral, bloodlust state, she worries that he might end up hurting someone and wonders what she should do. Suddenly, Coco rushes toward him, screaming Kim Soo-hyuk's name. She jumps straight on top of him, furiously demanding to know why he broke his promise. At that moment, he reaches out his hand. Deeply alarmed, Mirror shouts for Coco to get away immediately because he is too dangerous. But instead, Kim Soo-hyuk gently rests his hand on Coco's head and apologizes, saying he had no other choice. He then looks over at Mirror and says he is truly glad to see she's safe and sound. Right after that, Kim Soo-hyuk loses consciousness and collapses. Coco immediately panics, screaming in tears and wondering if he just died. A little later, he slowly opens his eyes as he hears someone calling for him. It's Coco, overwhelmed with joy seeing that he's still alive and kicking. Confused, he asks where they are, and Mirror explains that they're currently in a secure hotel facility belonging to the task force. He immediately asks about Katerina's whereabouts. Mirror tells him that her body is currently being transported for an autopsy, adding that securing the body of an actual squad leader is an extremely rare opportunity. Cecilia and the other members are handling the escort, so he doesn't need to worry about a thing. Kim Soo-hyuk nods, saying he understands. Mirror gives him a suspicious, curious look and tosses a blood bag right to him. He asks what that's for, and she explains she's just trying to cheer him up, praising him for defeating a squad leader on his very first mission while successfully rescuing his allies. For a rookie, he did an exceptional job. The boy quickly replies that this wasn't his first rodeo against vampires, bitterly remembering how he lost precious comrades in the past. Sure, he took down the squad leader in the end, but all he can focus on is the terrifying feeling of almost losing to vampires all over again. If he had completely lost control of himself, he could have easily harmed his own comrades. His words take Mirror by surprise, but she counters by telling him that he has truly changed and that Ayaka was right all along. Coco asks what Ayaka has to do with this. Mirror explains that she watched him maintain his consciousness even at the height of his wildest, most furious state. She deduces that he most likely grew much stronger after drinking Katerina's blood. In his initial rampage, he unleashed massive, overwhelming power, but he was completely out of control and mindless. However, after drinking the squad leader's blood, he clearly showed signs of consciousness. If he can learn to control that power under his own free will, he will undeniably become insanely strong. She admits that this is just a working theory, but his growth is unmistakable, showing most visibly in his eyes. He asks what she means by that, and Mirror explains that unlike before, his eyes now resemble those of an ascending vampire. Based on that progression, the next stage of his evolution will be crimson red irises with pitch black sclera, the legendary reverse eyes. Kim Soo-hyuk asks what she means by black eyes. To both of their surprise, Coco casually chimes in, saying she has actually heard about them before, back when she was still serving as an active squad leader. He quickly asks what else she knows about it, but she immediately backtracks, claiming she doesn't know anything else. Coco defensively snaps at herself, saying she just spoke without thinking. Kim Soo-hyuk reflects in silence. Even among squad leaders, vampires at that advanced tier must be exceptionally rare. Being able to regenerate a severed limb as effortlessly and rapidly as he did is no ordinary feat, even when considering multiple factors. Watching Coco and Mirror bicker back and forth, he concludes that Mirror's deduction actually makes total sense. She didn't earn the rank of bishop for nothing. He then genuinely thanks Mirror. Caught off guard by his sudden gratitude, she asks what brought that on. He explains that he is truly grateful to her for trusting him and sticking to the plan until the end. Flattered and beaming with pride, she teases him, saying that the way he speaks makes anyone think he's the real leader around here. Kim Soo-hyuk fires back with a deadpan remark, noting that certain reckless individual actions almost ruined everything, leaving Coco completely red-faced in embarrassment. She sheepishly asks if they really had to leave the hostages behind like that. He just tells her to chill out, saying he was only teasing and that the bottom line is everything went according to plan, which makes her pucker her lips in annoyance. He adds that besides, now they know this method inside and out, locking eyes firmly onto Coco. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the hotel, Lucia is fuming as she recalls everything her sister Mirror told her. In her mind, because of Kim Soo-hyuk's reckless stunt, her precious sister Mirror almost lost her life. She can't believe the sheer audacity he had to put her sister in such extreme danger. Suddenly, Lucia overhears a conversation coming from the adjacent room. She hears Coco asking in a weird tone if he wants her blood right now. Lucia's mind instantly derails into wildly inappropriate and scandalous thoughts. She gets completely outraged, imagining that while Mirror is resting and recovering from the hospital, Kim Soo-hyuk is inside that room getting up to sketchy, perverse things with Coco. To make matters far worse, Coco loudly whines that she feels strange and asks how much longer he plans on keeping this up. Lucia's imagination blows up in utter shock, spiraling into total misunderstanding. Her nose begins to bleed profusely from sheer embarrassment and outrage. Livid that after putting her sister through hell, Kim Soo-hyuk still has the nerve to mess around like this, Lucia starts screaming at the top of her lungs, labeling him a total depraved monster, and swearing that she is going to tell Mirror every single dirty detail. And just like that, an entire month has passed. Now inside the task force training facility at the Korea branch, Mirror tells Kim Soo-hyuk to wake up to reality. She points out that he got lucky against Katarina, but to face their future enemies, he must fully master his own abilities. If he relies solely on luck, he will never improve, and if he cannot manifest the reverse eye at will, he will never become stronger. Without hesitating for a second, she slices his arm clean off, stating that she has to push him to his absolute limit to force him to grow stronger. Right after, she drives her sword straight through his chest, making the boy cough up blood. Mirror explains that, based on when the reverse eye first manifested, the trigger is most likely massive blood loss. Meanwhile, Coco and Lucia just watch the brutal training session from a safe distance. Mirror warns him that he is about to lose consciousness, and if he truly wants to master the reverse eye, he needs to hold on with everything he's got. Our boy feels an agonizing surge of pain and, overtaken by blinding rage, ends up activating the reverse eye. However, Mirror realizes it's yet another failed attempt, as he completely lost his sanity again. He charges furiously at her while regenerating his severed arm. Mirror calls out for Lucia, and a dazzling barrier of light rises up, containing the rampaging boy. A short while later, when our protagonist finally comes to his senses, Mirror asks if he is finally up. He immediately asks how many failures they've had so far, and she replies that this was their 10th attempt. Lucia, still maintaining the barrier, warns that they are running dangerously low on blood bags and asks if it is really okay to keep pushing through such extreme training. Kim Soo-hyuk replies firmly that he must master the reverse eye before their next mission begins. Mirror then fills him in on the current situation. To prevent any confidential information from leaking, Katarina blew up all of her research labs in Russia. However, before doing that, it seems she moved all the drugs and test subjects out of the area. The task force has already started tracking them down, and as soon as they pinpoint the location, Kim Soo-hyuk confirms that their squad will be deployed into action. Lucia mentions that, speaking of test subjects, there's still that nun they rescued back in Russia. Kim Soo-hyuk explains that despite being a vampire, they determined she poses no threat at all. Because of that, Bishop Dominic agreed to take care of her until they can verify her records with the church. Lucia adds that when the nun was leaving, she specifically made sure to pass along a message to both of them, expressing just how deeply grateful she is for them saving her life. Kim Soo-hyuk reflects, saying that saving a life is a great thing, but if he had been stronger, he could have saved far more people, and Mirror wouldn't have been put in such grave danger. The next enemy is bound to be much stronger than Katarina, so he needs to grow more powerful no matter what it takes. Mirror gives a little smirk, telling him that that's the exact spirit. Kim Soo-hyuk jumps right back into the grueling combat training, while Coco just stares at them looking completely bored out of her mind. Later on, back in their private quarters, our boy thanks Coco for all her hard work and dedication. She replies that it was nothing special while he continues drinking her blood. He asks her why on earth she insisted on taking her clothes off for this, and she casually says she just feels a bit more comfortable that way. He then apologizes to her for going after Katarina all alone in the past, acknowledging that she must have wanted to take Katarina down even more than he did. Yet he ordered her to go save Mirror instead. Coco responds by saying she actually has a big favor to ask. When he asks what it is, she pounces right on top of him and declares that she wants to drink his blood too. Confused, he asks what she means, and Coco vents. When he went after Katarina by himself, she was beyond furious, but she knows deep down that if she had gone with him, she would have died on the spot. She wants to get stronger too. Saying that Mirror and him are precious people to her, Coco declares that she is making a special exception for Kim Soo-hyuk. She is going to turn him into her servant so that she can be the one to protect him. He stares back at her completely lost for words, fully understanding her feelings. After that fight against Katarina, Coco must have felt utterly powerless and frustrated by her inability to do anything against the enemy. He realizes that behind those words, all she really wants is to solidify their bond as close friends. Kim Soo-hyuk agrees, thinking to himself that they are already friends anyway, and tells her she can go ahead and drink his blood. Super excited, Coco thanks him and begins feeding on his blood. He considers that sharing his blood might slow down his own growth, but wonders if maybe he should just let it slide this once. Meanwhile, right outside the room, Lucia overhears the suspicious noises coming from inside. She turns bright red in sheer embarrassment once again, her nose bleeding profusely, utterly shocked as she wonders what kind of scandalous thing is going on in there. Elsewhere, inside a moving medical transport, the doctors fall into pure panic upon examining the body. All the vital organs have completely vanished. Terrified, they realize this was never a real corpse to begin with and conclude that the leader of the 5th Squad is actually alive somewhere out there. Frantic, they shout that they must contact Bishop Cecilia immediately. At the same time, deep into the night at another location, a mysterious hooded figure approaches a group of armed men. The guards mock her, asking who this kid is, and arrogantly telling her that this is no place for someone like her to wander into. She bluntly tells them to shut their mouths, glaring directly at them with terrifying, piercing eyes. She then orders them to go tell their mob boss right now that Katarina has arrived. And just like that, inside a hidden location, a girl remarks that Katarina has changed drastically since the last time she saw her. This girl is Natalie, the vice leader of the 4th Squad. Right by her side stands Berenice, who also holds the position of vice leader within the same squad. Another vampire speaks up, warning Katarina that she shouldn't get so full of herself by relying only on her vampire abilities, reminding her that she needs to train her physical body as well. This imposing woman is Abigail, the leader of the 4th Squad of the Nanayama Gumi faction. Katarina snaps back angrily, telling Abigail to shut up, and stating that none of this would have happened if it weren't for Lily's interference. Because she had almost all of her blood drained, Katarina ended up regressing into the form of a young child. She nearly died during that encounter, and barely managed to escape with her life by hiding inside the poisonous mist. Abigail then brings up the Russian laboratory, asking what happened to it since Katarina ended up here. Katarina starts to explain, but Berenice interrupts her, clarifying that Katarina blew it up under Lady Anna's direct orders to destroy the facility and burn every single shred of evidence. All the vital data is already being properly transferred over to their local laboratory. Abigail says she understands the situation. Standing beside her, Natalie praises Berenice, saying she is always impressed by just how remarkably competent she is. Katarina glares at Berenice and asks if she was the one who created the drug known as Bloody Snow. Abigail proudly confirms it, emphasizing that this was the exact reason she personally handpicked Berenice as her direct subordinate, assuring that everyone present is part of the true elite. Right after that, Natalie clumsily starts drooling all over Katarina. Katarina scoffs, asking if that kind of disgraceful behavior really fits an elite force. Berenice merely brushes it off, saying she finds it fascinating to watch Natalie get completely wasted like that. Shifting the focus, Abigail demands to know the real reason behind Katarina's sudden visit and asks if Ayaka is nearby. Katarina replies that this is precisely why she came. She reveals that Ayaka, Abigail's very own disciple, is dead. The news sends Abigail into a blind rage, demanding to know right away who was responsible for killing her. Katarina fuels the fire, saying it was the exact same guy who reduced her to this miserable child form. She warns that this bastard is hunting down the squad leaders one by one, and since he attacked both Ayaka and herself, Abigail is undoubtedly next on his list. Katarina suggests they need to prepare urgent countermeasures, secretly thinking that Abigail will want to avenge her disciple at all costs. In reality, the one who actually murdered Ayaka was Katarina herself. She plans to weaponize Abigail's wrath to slaughter Kim Soo-hyuk, knowing the boy would never expect to pay such a heavy price after what he did to her. Unlike the others, Abigail is a living, walking weapon of war who has survived countless battlefields. Katarina fully intends to manipulate her into getting rid of Kim Soo-hyuk, and then completely ruin Lady Anna's plans right after. However, Abigail simply stands up and coldly states that none of that matters. Katarina is left dumbfounded, asking if she truly has no intention of avenging her own disciple. Abigail replies indifferently that anyone can die on the battlefield, and Ayaka died solely because she was weak. Katarina can hardly wrap her head around how a battle-crazed maniac could react with such complete apathy. But then, Abigail suddenly turns around and intensely asks if that guy is truly that strong. Katarina tries to downplay him, saying he wasn't really that tough and that he simply caught her off guard. She confesses that she never expected a newly turned vampire to possess those terrifying eyes. The revelation takes Abigail by complete surprise. She asks if the bishop who turned him was the one responsible for those eyes. Katarina hesitates, nervously asking when she ever mentioned anything about that. Without warning, Abigail lunges forward and violently grabs Katarina by the throat. Katarina struggles to break free, asking why she is suddenly attacking her. Abigail coldly orders her to shut up, answer her questions without dodging, and demand to know where that man is right now. Meanwhile, back at the task force base, Lucia reveals to her sister Mira that Katerina is actually still alive. The preliminary autopsy report sent over by Cecilia confirmed that the corpse was completely fake and that the real Katerina is still on the loose somewhere out there. Coco is completely stunned by the revelation. Mira thinks out loud, recalling that Kim Soo-hyuk mentioned he couldn't access or use Katerina's abilities. She suggests that the fact that Katerina is still alive might be the exact reason why he couldn't manifest her powers. Our boy agrees that this is a very solid possibility. Considering he managed to retain his consciousness while in the reverse eye state, it's crystal clear that he stole the absorption power Ayaka previously mentioned. However, in order to fully absorb and utilize a unique skill, there seem to be specific conditions that must be met first. Mira points out that, unlike what happened with Ayaka's technique, he cannot manifest Katerina's snakes or venom, making her wonder what the key difference between the two cases really is. Suddenly, Coco picks up a strange scent in the air. It's the thick stench of blood. She instantly goes on high alert. Kim Soo-hyuk asks what's wrong, and she warns that she knows that exact smell of slaughter all too well. At the main entrance of the compound, two base guards are walking in when someone quietly appears right behind them, asking in a chilling tone if she can ask a quick question. The guards turn around and one asks what she wants. The intruder calmly asks if they happen to know Kim Soo-hyuk. Realizing instantly that they are facing a high-ranking vampire, the guards shout, demanding to know how she dared to break in here. Before they can even react, she throws a devastating punch, completely blowing the first guard's head apart on the spot. She tells the other guard to stay quiet. The surviving guard attempts a desperate counterattack, getting excited for a brief second thinking he managed to pierce straight through her heart. However, the blade of his sword merely touches her skin, unable to penetrate her iron-hard body. Glaring down at him in total disgust, Abigail asks what he thinks he's doing, coldly stating that she has zero interest in dealing with small fry. She orders him to shut up, snaps his blade clean in half with her bare hands, and repeats the question with an overwhelming presence. Where is Kim Soo-hyuk? Back inside the facility, Mira feels the violent shockwave from the commotion and wonders what on earth is happening outside. Right at that moment, the main doors are violently blasted open. Abigail walks in, towering over everyone and calling out Mira and Lucia by name. She mocks the security forces, asking why they even bothered to fight back when they are so pathetically weak. She reveals that she came here knowing every single detail, declaring that she will ask one final time, where is Kim Soo-hyuk? As the terrified agents aim their weapons in total panic, Abigail asks if they are really going to refuse to talk. With a menacing, bloodthirsty smile, she declares that it doesn't matter either way. Until that man shows his face, she will slaughter every single living soul inside this building. Walking through a pile of fallen bodies, Abigail mocks the entire scene. She scoffs with pure disdain, asking if this is really what they call the strongest squad tasked with fighting vampires, claiming she could easily wipe them all out using just her own army. Towering over a fallen soldier, she tells him that in his next life, he should make sure to be born strong. Just as her blade is about to end the man's life, a brilliant holy light erupts right in front of her. Abigail immediately senses the sacred power and realizes that the bishops have finally stepped onto the field. Lucia shouts for Mira to strike right now. Gripping her sword with resolve, Mira lunges forward to deliver a lethal blow, ordering the intruder to die. However, Abigail blocks the strike effortlessly, acknowledging to herself that it was indeed a remarkably heavy blow. Mira asks the wounded soldier if he is alright, and he manages to nod in response. She asks what kind of abilities the enemy possesses, and the guard replies that while he doesn't know all the details, she can instantly materialize swords after slicing her own arm. Mira deduces that it's a technique based on blood weapon creation. Recognizing the sheer danger, she orders the soldier to pull back immediately and report everything to the sanctum. On the other side, Abigail smirks, remarking that things are finally getting interesting now that the bishops have shown up. Then, her eyes lock straight onto our protagonist. She has finally tracked down Kim Soo-hyuk. She mentions hearing from Katerina that he has been hunting down squad leaders, and that he has already manifested those mysterious eyes. Although she doesn't know how he acquired that power, now that she knows about it, there is no way she can walk away without fighting him directly. To Abigail's surprise, Coco suddenly steps forward from the side, calling her by name. Abigail raises an eyebrow, asking why on earth Coco is standing there, and questioning if they aren't supposed to be sworn enemies. While Mira wonders if the two already knew each other from before, Coco glares at Abigail's weapon and asks if she came here to capture Kim Soo-hyuk as well. Coco makes it crystal clear that she won't allow that to happen, declaring that he is her subordinate now. Abigail sneers at the word subordinate. Coco fires back, saying she appreciated what Abigail did for Ayaka in the past, but firmly warns that she won't let her take anything else from her. Abigail simply replies with mockery, noting that the very friend Coco worked so hard to protect ended up siding with the enemy, calling her entire life a complete tragedy. Mira steps in, stating firmly that it doesn't matter how high Abigail's rank is as a squad leader. In this room, they have two bishops and two squad leader level vampires standing together. She warns Abigail that she has no idea who she is messing with after committing this massacre, and that she shouldn't even dream of dying peacefully. Abigail laughs in derision, firing back that just because she holds the title of squad leader doesn't mean she is anything like the others. If they think this is a joke, she tells them not to worry. On a battlefield soaked in blood, she is completely invincible. placing her hands flat onto the floor. Countless blood blades and spikes erupt violently from the ground. Everyone is forced to scatter and dodge frantically. Mirror is left completely stunned by the attack, realizing this goes far beyond simple weapon creation. Lucia shouts from the back, warning Mirror to watch out because those spikes are surging directly from the pools of blood scattered across the room. Yet, to Lucia's absolute horror, Abigail appears right beside her out of nowhere, coldly asking if she really thought she could just stand there unnoticed. With a devastating strike straight to the ribs, Abigail sends Lucia flying violently across the room. Mirror screams Lucia's name in pure panic. Abigail compliments the bishop's awareness, admitting her observation skills were sharp, but remarks that she should have managed her distance much better. With a sadistic grin, the intruder says she can't wait to see who is next. Boiling with rage, Mirror shouts at the top of her lungs, asking how she dared to lay a hand on Lucia. Before Abigail can press the attack, Coco rushes in and restrains her from behind. Seizing the opening, Kim Soo-hyuk lunges forward and strikes Abigail with his dagger. He yells at Mirror to keep her head cool if she doesn't want to end up the same way, telling her that he will hold off the enemy and buy time while she goes and tends to Lucia first. Mirror rushes over to Lucia and is terrified to find that a part of her sister's body has been deeply slashed. The situation is critical. The wound is severe and the bleeding is far too heavy. Mirror attempts to seal the hemorrhage with as much holy power as she can muster, but she knows deep down that this is only delaying the inevitable. Until reinforcements arrive, Kim Soo-hyuk will have to hold the line for as long as humanly possible. Abigail states that she only struck the boy just to be sure, but now it's fully confirmed. He still hasn't undergone a true awakening. It seems that power only flared up briefly once before. She confesses that she was genuinely looking forward to fighting a true challenge for the first time in ages. The protagonist is left confused, asking what she means by awakening. Abigail then lays out the rules for what comes next. She is going to personally butcher every single human inside this hotel, leaving our boy frozen in pure shock. She explains that revealing those eyes means he tapped into an awakened vampire's ability. So, if he wants to stop her from slaughtering everyone and save a single life, he will have to figure out how to awaken and unleash that power right now. Abigail asks with pure disdain if they should get started with swordsmanship. Kim Soo-hyuk stares intently at her, thinking to himself that she is a truly formidable opponent. Due to her rock-solid, impenetrable skin, not even silver knives or silver weapons have any effect on her. It's just as he expected. He has no other choice but to rely on that power. If he falters here for even a second, Lucia could end up severely injured or worse. Until reinforcements finally show up, he has to stall and buy as much time as humanly possible. Without hesitation, he charges straight at her in a coordinated pincer attack alongside Coco. Abigail scoffs, remarking that if Coco is taking this seriously, she has zero interest. But in the blink of an eye, Coco darts right past her with astonishing speed, leaving Abigail genuinely surprised. Our protagonist notices the shift and thinks that Coco has indeed gotten drastically faster, likely because she absorbed his blood earlier. Compared to the very first time he saw her fight, her agility has reached an unbelievable level. Coco starts launching rapid strikes against Abigail from multiple angles. Confident, Kim Soo-hyuk thinks that by joining forces with Coco, they can definitely take her down together. Right at that moment, he manages to block Abigail's counter and lands a clean, heavy punch right across her face. Surprised by the martial arts technique, Abigail asks if that is really Krav Maga. Kim Soo-hyuk continues hammering away at her with all his might. She tries to impale him with her blood spear, but he dodges with precision and connects a brutal kick straight to her jaw. Knocking her back a few steps, our boy thinks he can actually handle this fight. Her primary skill is blood weapon creation, and the combat style she just used relies on human martial techniques. Because of that, he is confident he won't lose against a human fighting style, and that he can definitely secure the win. However, to his absolute horror, Abigail's weapon suddenly tears through the air, grazing right past his neck. He barely evades it in the nick of time, asking himself in shock what on earth that movement was. Her attack patterns have completely shifted compared to before. Realizing the immediate danger, he tries to back off and create some distance, but Abigail's weapon is far too fast, plunging straight into his eye. As she violently rips the weapon out, the boy screams out in agonizing pain. Abigail coldly states that choice belongs only to the strong, and she has no interest in someone who refuses to take control of their own power. Seeing that happen, Coco charges in blindly to attack Abigail, screaming how she dared to do that and swearing she will never forgive her for tormenting Kim Soo-hyuk. Abigail acknowledges that Coco has gotten faster, but points out that her movement patterns are far too predictable. Coco realizes the mistake instantly. It's too late to pull back, and she is about to be impaled. At the last split second, Kim Soo-hyuk throws himself forward and shoves Coco out of the way, saving her life. Coco is left dazed, realizing she almost died, but falls into sheer panic seeing Kim Soo-hyuk standing there with the spear impaled deep inside his chest. Abigail sighs in disappointment, remarking that even after being pushed this far, he still couldn't bring out his true power. The moment she pulls the spear free, Kim Soo-hyuk collapses to his knees, screaming in agony as she turns to walk away. Abigail notices Coco trying to move again, but coldly warns her that she has no interest in her and is only sparing her life for the sake of old times. She adds that Coco is just as foolish as she has always been. However, the second Abigail turns her back, she she is blindsided by our boy lunging right at her with overwhelming feral fury. The devastating impact sends Abigail flying backward through the air. Stunned and completely unable to process what just happened, she wonders where that monstrous surge of strength came from and what on earth he just did. With a wild, manic grin on her face, Abigail realizes in sheer excitement that he has finally unleashed it, his true awakened ability.